We're going to start with you on Senate Bill 130, and you take the time you need to present, and then we have some additional witnesses who all signed up, I believe, favorable, but you start off Senate Bill 130.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of this Education, Energy, and Environmental Committee. Before I give my testimony, I just want to give you a little history. In 2017, I set forth a bill that dealt with cell phones in classrooms in the school setting, 2017. And I have to tell you all, I worked with a wonderful young lady from who was a delegate up in, who was from Frederick County. And we were just so concerned about what the educators were talking to us about, because cell phones had begun to emerge. And the teachers, the educators in the classroom were saying to us, we can't do what needs to be done in our class. We can't teach in our classrooms, and eventually it's going to have a profound negative impact on the education of our children if we don't do something about it. And that is when we decided to put a bill in 2017 to address this problem of cell phones in classrooms. Here we are today, and I'm going to present this bill, Senate Bill 130. As you know, I am Senator Joanne C. Benson, and I'm here to present Senate Bill 130, County Board of Education Student Cellular Device Use Policy Establishment. Excuse me. As a legislator of the 24th Legislative District, and a retired educator of the Prince George's County Public Schools. And I'm still working with children in the school system, a total of 50 years. Hopefully I don't look that old. I am deeply committed to fostering a supportive and effective learning environment for our children, our beloved children, our future, our rising stars. Today I'm here to speak in support of the proposed legislation to ban cell phones in schools. The primary goal of this legislation is to enhance the academic focus, mental health, and overall safety of our children by reducing the distractions and potential harm associated with cell phone usage during school hours. Please allow me to explain why this legislation is so important and needed. Number one, enhancing academic focus, reducing distractions. Cell phones are a significant source of distraction in the classroom. By limiting their use, we can help students concentrate better on their studies and improve their academic performance, which is what we said in 2017. Supporting teachers. Teachers often struggle to maintain students' attention when cell phones are present. This legislation will empower educators to create a more focused and engaging learning environment. Number two, promoting mental health, reducing anxiety and depression. Research has shown that excessive cell use, particularly on social media, can contribute to increased anxiety and depression among students. By limiting access during school hours, we can help mitigate these mental health issues. Encouraging social interaction. Reducing cell phone use encourages students to engage more with their peers and develop essential social skills. Number 3, preventing cyberbullying, minimizing online harassment. Oh my goodness. Cell phones can be used for cyberbullying, which can have severe emotional and psychological effects on students. A ban can help reduce these incidents and create a safer school environment. Number 4, ensuring safety and integrity, reducing cheating. Cell phones can be used to cheat on exams and assignments. Banning those helps maintain academic integrity. Managing emergencies. While some parents may worry about not being able to contact their children, schools can implement policies that allow for emergency communication without disrupting the learning environment. Number 5, supporting evidence. Personal stories. Once again, as a retired principal and educator, I am very much involved in the schools in Prince George's County. I have had numerous conversations with teachers and parents who have shared their concerns about the negative impact of cell phones in the classroom. For example, cyberbullying is a huge concern for the safety of the children. Parents have stated the mentioned behavior has led to emotional distress, social withdrawal, and a decline in academic performance. We have even had incidents where children don't even want to go to school because of this problem. Research and data. Studies have consistently shown that limiting cell phone use in schools leads to better academic outcomes and improves mental health. For instance, a study by Anna Lamb, Harvard Gazette staff writer, March 2023, stated the National Center of Education Status reported that 77% of United States schools have moved to prohibit cell phones for non-academic purposes. Comparative examples, other schools and districts, such as California, have successfully implemented similar bans with positive results. Their experiences can serve as a model for our efforts. Finally, the proposed phone ban legislation is a crucial step towards creating a more focused, healthy, and safe learning environment for our children. Therefore, I would urge your favorable report and vote to support this legislation and help us to build a brighter future for our beloved children. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you, Senator Benson. Do we have any questions for our sponsor, Senator Benson, Joanne C. Benson?
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, we're going to just go to the witnesses now. And you said you needed to get back up to committee. We don't want to, you're free to do that if you like, or stick around. We've got James York. Mr. York, come up here. Margaret Boyle. Is Margaret Boyle here? Okay, and Felicia Moore. Felicia Moore. Okay, do not see them, but Mr. York, you're signed up straight favorable, and clock. We're going to put you, we have to put you on the 2.5-minute clock, unfortunately.
I'm good with that.
There you go. Okay, let's get that clock up there. Clock?
Okay.
There we go.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Jim York. I'm a physician with decades of experience caring for Maryland patients. Today, I come before you as the past president of MedChi, our state medical society, and chair of our Child Behavioral Health Task Force, formed because of considerable concerns about the increase in anxiety, depression, and suicide among children in recent years. I'm speaking on behalf of Maryland physicians in strong support of Senate Bills 29, 130, 368. I may not have time to actually give the testimony for all, but I speak in favor of all these bills. Strong support for prohibiting cell phone use during instructional time. So as someone who's dedicated my career to health, well-being of our community, I'm deeply concerned about the impact of excessive cell phone use on our children. In the classroom, phones are more than a distraction. They're a barrier to learning, a barrier to personal growth. There's tons of research out there. Research in educational psychology shows students distracted by these phones score significantly lower on tests. London School of Economics found that banning phones improved test scores, especially for low-income and struggling students. And many states have now started with regulating cell phone use in schools. The effects extend beyond academics. The American Psychological Association links excessive screen time to higher rates of anxiety, depression, and sleep problems in adolescents. There's been a lot of research, in particular by a man named Dr. John Haidt, H-A-I-D-T, out of NYU. He's written a book called The Anxious Generation, an excellent book that summarizes a lot of his research. He's been around speaking about this. He can be easily found on YouTube, and he is a good spokesman for the considerable work he's done in this area. So as a physician, I've seen these issues manifest in my patients, and I know how devastating this can be for families. This bill provides simple and yet critical exceptions for health needs, IEPs, educational purposes. And as a physician who cares deeply about the future of our kids, I urge you to support these bills. And it's interesting that Anne Arundel County has already instituted a ban on phones this past year, and it seems to be working well. And thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Any questions for our witness? Again, we're on Senate Bill 130. Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 130. Okay, thank you, sir. That's the end of this bill hearing. We are told that Senator McCray is en route. And as soon as he walks in, we're going to take his bill next, which will be Senate Bill 283. So let's wait for 30 seconds for the senator. Yeah. Okay, if we don't see Senator McCray within 30 seconds, we're going to go to the next bill, which is Senate Bill 253. But let's just wait a few seconds here. We stick their head out the door and see if there's a Senator McCray en route. No? Okay. So, folks, we're going to go to Senate Bill 253. And this is Corey McCray. Okay, actually, wait, hold on. He has spotted Senator McCray somewhere in the back room here. And then we'll take Senate Bill 253. This bill, the McCray bill, there's very few witnesses. So. He has arrived. Okay. Senator McCray, your timing's perfect, almost perfect. Senate Bill 283.
Okay, I was about to say, I thought my guy was right here with me and then he disappeared. Can I call up my panel?
Sure. Two people have signed up are Jacob Mishuk and Michael Gannon. I don't know if those are the folks. Okay, why don't you come up again? We're on Senate Bill 283. Senator, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I come to you in reference to Senate Bill 283, which simply makes sure that those young scholars that have some level of need base, when we think about AP, exams, things of that nature, that there's no fee associated with this standpoint. I have a phenomenal panel in front of me that will explain why such a thing would be important, but I just ask for a favorable report for Senate Bill 283.
Okay, who wants to go first? Okay, tell us your name.
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. My name is Michael Gannon, and I'm a student at Magruder High School in Montgomery County. I sit before you as a concerned student, urging you all to report favorably on Senate Bill 283. Access to higher education and career paths are often intertwined with success in exams, particularly the AP or IB programs. These standardized tests allow for students to achieve scores that are instrumental in the college application process and intrinsically their life beyond the Maryland school system. According to the University of Chicago, earning higher scores allows a student to receive more scholarships and grants, easing financial burdens on families with children transitioning into higher education. However, the cost to take these exams can range from $76 all the way up to $119, depending on the program, which is a high price to pay for many students. Impoverished and underserved students often rely on fiscally generous programs to achieve success. Currently, the Maryland Blueprint covers free AP and IB exams taken within schools under its college and career readiness pillar. If this critical CCR funding is stripped, as is my fear and the fear of students across the state due to the looming budget deficit, thousands of students will be unable to take these exams and receive scholarships for their academic excellence. In Montgomery County, the farms rate stands at 48.5%. Despite its status as a wealthier region, many students still rely on state funding to take exams. This figure is higher when concentrated in specific areas. For example, at my high school, we have a 55% farms rate, with many of my peers relying on the aforementioned funding to access opportunities for a seamless and successful transition into post-secondary opportunities. I urge you all to report favorably on Senate Bill 283 to ensure that the youth of Maryland remain empowered and confident in achieving their dreams beyond high school. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for testimony. Sir, do you want to go next? And I should have mentioned that you're on a 2.5-minute clock, okay?
Thank you. Thank you to Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members for hearing my testimony today, and for Senator McCrae for introducing this important bill. 3 weeks ago, my daughter Eleanor, an 8th grader at Arbutus Middle School in Baltimore County, and here with me today.
Did you give us your name?
I'm sorry, my name is Jacob Mishuk. I'm a senior director at the College Board. And so my daughter Eleanor was visited by her local high school to begin putting together her 9th grade class schedule. Her science teacher recommended that she consider taking an advanced placement course as a 9th grader, AP Environmental Science. Truth be told, she's a little nervous about taking a college-level course early in high school, but her mother and I encouraged her to try it out, push herself, and enroll in the course. Well, yes, I also happen to work at College Board on the policy team. Parents and students across Maryland are making choices just like our family on what courses to take in high school. It's critical that families making these choices do not have unnecessary barriers to taking rigorous coursework in high school. Senate Bill 283 would reduce barriers for low-income students to take advanced placement or other college-level exams in high school by eliminating exam fees for students with financial need. Currently, the Blueprint provides funding for AP exam fees for students in post-CCR pathways in 11th and 12th grades. And we saw the positive impact of this funding last year, with Maryland having one of the largest percentage increases in students taking and succeeding on AP exams across all our states and earning that critical college credit. But it might also be surprising to note that nearly 40% of Maryland public school students took an AP exam prior to 11th grade in 2024. Imagine the added positive impact with the addition of funding for 9th and 10th grade students. While Eleanor will be taking AP Environmental Science next year, a lot of students are taking another early AP course, AP Seminar, as their 10th grade English course. AP Seminar can open the invitation to college-level coursework to a more diverse student population. It prioritizes workforce skills that employers require. It's a project-based course, which includes research, presentations, and a performance-based essay exam that teaches students how to solve problems, work in teams, manage complex projects, and communicate findings. Let's give more students the opportunity to take advanced coursework that Eleanor will have next year when she starts high school. I humbly ask for your support of SB 283. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is Eleanor testifying or just here for moral support?
Here for moral support.
Dad, okay.
We might need it, Mr. Chair.
Sorry,
What?
as a woman, I want to hear a woman's voice on it. Your personal story is valuable for us.
Thank you. I'm an 8th grader at Arbutus Middle School, and my local high school came to talk about courses for next year, and my science teacher recommended that I take AP Environmental Science, and since my dad works at College Board, I do have personal experience with AP, and although I am a little nervous as it is a challenging course, I'm grateful that I'm able to take it in 9th grade.
Look at that. See, good job, Eleanor. We need your voice here. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Senator McCray, the panel? Okay, thank you to all of you. That concludes the bill hearing on Senate Bill 283. We're now going to go to Senate Bill 253. And I'm going to call Bryson Popham. You're going to come up here. Tom Albro, Robert Malone. And this is a bill basically from the administration. Jeremy Baker. And let's stop there. There's some testimony from the Department of Commerce that's favorable with amendment and then one unfavorable. So we'll keep that separate. So who wants to take, yeah, I'm sorry.
It's actually, it's a Commerce departmental bill, so.
Okay.
I'm here for Commerce.
Oh, okay. Well, you signed up FWA, so, okay.
Yeah, we do have an amendment, so that's.
Very good. Okay, so who wants to start off here?
I will.
We'll start with our Department of Commerce representative, Jennifer. Why don't you proceed, okay?
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. For the record, I am Jen Lahat. I'm the Managing Director of Policy, Research, and Government Affairs with the Maryland Department of Commerce. I'm here today to present Senate Bill 253, a departmental bill which was introduced by the Chair on behalf of the Department of Commerce. I'm joined on my panel by Bryson Popham on behalf of the Army Alliance, Rob Malone with the U.S. Army Chemical Biological Center at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Tom Albro with the Maryland Defense Research Coalition, and Ed Hammerberg with the Maryland Department of the Environment. We know the title of this bill raises eyebrows, and it addresses a sensitive and important topic. I do want to thank the members of the committee that I have been able to meet with thus far to discuss the bill. And we have subject matter experts here with us today to answer questions that I know you may have. We are also aware that you have received testimony in opposition to the bill. Our hope is that the testimony that you will hear today, as well as the answers that you will hear to questions that you may have, will address those concerns. Senate Bill 253 modifies language in the Environment article to provide exemptions from certain statutory restrictions on the incineration of chemical warfare material only if the incineration is done for research, development, or demonstration purposes at a research facility designated by the U.S. Department of Defense. The Department of Defense has been seeking this change for several years to allow them to research and develop new technologies to be able to destroy chemical warfare materials in the field. Aberdeen Proving Ground is home to the U.S. Army Chemical Biological Center, or CBC. APG was also designated through international treaty as the only place in the nation where chemical agents can be synthesized and stored at the quantities needed for defense research, development, and testing purposes. However, the Environment article currently prevents APG from conducting this research because there is no practical way for them to obtain a permit or waiver for the restrictions on incinerating these materials. Obtaining such a permit would require submitting data that does not yet exist about the very processes the facility is researching. In short, APG would be required to submit the results of a test before they are even allowed to conduct the test. So it's a bit of a catch-22. Given the increase of chemical weapons being used by other nations, the United States and our allies have a renewed need to develop methods by which our troops can safely mitigate those materials in the field. To put it quite simply, Aberdeen Proving Ground is the only location in the nation where this important research and development can be done, and the existing statute does not allow them to do so. This is the reason this exemption is needed. CBC will continue to implement their safety standards and processes that Mr. Malone will speak about further, and the bill has explicit language confirming this does not exempt enforcement of MDE regulations. Included with our testimony is a technical amendment we are requesting. There was what appears to be a technical reordering of the draft language from what Commerce had initially submitted to what was ultimately introduced. We're requesting an amendment to alter that. It will not change the intent of the bill, and it will ensure that MDE is able to enforce regulations relating to controlled hazardous substances. The amendment will also ensure that the statute is clear so that MDE remains in compliance with the Federal Hazardous Waste Regulatory Program. And if there are more questions about that, Mr. Hamburg can expand on that. In conclusion, Senate Bill 253 provides a targeted exemption to allow further research and testing to be done here in Maryland to advance our nation's security. The skilled professionals at Aberdeen Proving Ground have a proven track record of doing this work and producing these technologies in ways that protect the workforce, the community, and the environment, and Commerce is proud to support their work. The Maryland Department of Commerce respectfully requests a favorable report with amendment on Senate Bill 253, and if I can, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to the rest of the panel now.
Absolutely. Mr. Popham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Bryson Popham on behalf of the Army Alliance in support of Senate Bill 253. Those committee members who are alumni of your predecessor committee, EEE, will remember this bill from 2021. It appeared as Senate Bill 889. There was no cross-file that year, and it went in the drawer for a variety of reasons I'll be happy to share with you at some future point if you're interested. There are two things that I want you to remember. Ms. Lahat presented the bill quite capably, but there are two salient points here. Number one, this bill is essential for our national defense. You're going to hear the justification from that from our other panel members, but please understand this is a very important piece of legislation. Secondly, equally important to this committee, this General Assembly, is the ensuring that our environmental laws are adequate to protect our citizens, that your regulator has sufficient authority to do so. We recognize that, and we will address both the comments that have been made by the one or two opponents that are out there, but also questions from the committee. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Senator Hester for meeting with Mr. Malone and I to flesh out some of those questions. We make that offer to any committee member who wishes to meet with us. At this point, Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Tom Albro from the Maryland Defense Research Coalition.
Thank you, Bryson. Good afternoon, Chairman Feldman, members of the committee. My name is Tom Albro, and I'm here today as a former president of the Army Alliance, as the chairman of the Maryland Defense Research Coalition, and as a former U.S. Army officer stationed at Aberdeen Proving Ground. The Army Alliance is a nonprofit civic organization founded in 1999 with the overarching objective of promoting the well-being of programs and organizations at Aberdeen Proving Ground. The Maryland Defense Research Coalition was established in 2021 to promote community support of and the language change proposed in Senate Bill 253. The coalition currently consists of 18 members representing a cross-section of our community, from nonprofit organizations, defense contractors, and local businesses to the Harford County Executive. As a chemical officer stationed at Aberdeen Proving Ground in 1983, I was personally involved in the demilitarization of chemical weapons, both here in the U.S. and across the globe. Throughout my 40-year career, I have lived, worked, and raised a family in Harford County, and over that time supported Aberdeen Proving Ground and its chemical biological defense organizations. The U.S. Army's Chemical Biological Center is the nation's preeminent chemical and biological defense research and development center, and a global leader in that field. The center is also the only location in the U.S., as defined by the Chemical Weapons Convention Treaty, where chemical warfare materials can be produced in quantities specifically needed for research, development, and demonstration activities. Those activities cover all chemical agent mitigation strategies, including incineration. The Chemical Biological Center has a long and collaborative relationship working with the Maryland Department of the Environment. Together, they have allowed the center to successfully execute its vital mission while protecting both the environment and its local citizens. With MDE oversight, the center will continue executing its mission safely and to the requirements established by Maryland state law. As currently written, Maryland law constrains the Chemical Biological Center from fulfilling its mission to investigate technologies that protect our warfighters as well as protect our homeland from chemical threats. For these reasons, we encourage a favorable report for Senate Bill 253. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sir, do you want to go next? Or?
Good day. Excuse me. Good day. I'm Ron Malone, and I'm an environmental scientist at the Chemical Biological Center at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me time today to provide the why behind the need for this legislation, as well as its importance to our nation and the world in eliminating WMD. You've heard from the other speakers about my organization's unique expertise and robust purpose-built facilities. There's a fact sheet in the file providing further detail on our workforce facilities and why APG is the only place in the U.S. where we can fabricate and store chemical agents for test programs. And this fact sheet was actually based upon discussion we had with Senator Hester, who made that recommendation, so that we can make it clear really what we're doing and how we're trying to do it in a manner that's protective of both human health and the environment. The fact sheet also provides some of our OSHA safety statistics that show that our workforce who regularly operate in chemical agent environments are able to do so safer than the average workforce at a flower shop and on par with the safety standards of a bank or an insurance company. In 2013, we were called upon to destroy Syria's chemical weapons stockpile, eliminating 200 metric tons of chemical agent at sea with no impacts to the environment nor any safety issues. This was only achievable because of the depth of knowledge and breadth of experience that our Maryland-based workforce possesses. Since then, our adversaries have only become more brazen in their use of WMD. The Department of Defense must develop and field technologies that provide the ability to defeat these weapons before they can be used on our forces or our allies. As I speak to you today, we are actively preparing to destroy the remnants of Syria's chemical weapons program and Russia's used chemical weapons in the Ukraine. We're currently unable to destroy certain types of chemical weapons from these and other nations with our existing proven technologies. We also need new tactical solutions for the warfighter to destroy chemical weapons on the battlefield. Often their missions need to be performed with equipment that is man-portable and on munitions that cannot be destroyed using any other means. These critical solutions are at risk of being unavailable to our warfighters due to the current permitting requirements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've got one final witness on the panel.
Can you hear me okay? Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Edward Hammerberg. I'm a technical specialist and regulatory and compliance engineer supervisor with the Maryland Department of the Environment and the Solid Waste Program in the Land and Materials Administration. My group's responsible for hazardous waste permitting in the state. I'm here in support of the bill and am available for any questions that the committee may have today. Thank you.
We're going to take questions here. I'm going to just lead off. One is from the fiscal note, and then we have some testimony from MedChi, or State Medical Society. I'd maybe give an opportunity to address. So on the fiscal note, it talks about it's assumed the bill applies a limited number of cases. State finances are not anticipated to be materially affected. However, there could be an operational impact on MDE's ability to regulate chemical warfare materials that are incinerated at a qualifying research facility. At least from MDE, since they're referenced specifically in the fiscal note, in terms of this idea, what operational impact, maybe give us a little more meat on the bones there.
Yeah, actually, that comment was based on the version of the bill as introduced, but with the technical amendment, that concern would be eliminated.
Could somebody, our Commerce?
Yeah, the amendment should be on I think it's the third page of our testimony. It's in point 3 of the statute. What would be the new A in the bill as drafted, we're looking to actually move that down so that the exemption does not apply to, sorry, I've got the bill in front of me, let me.
Yeah, the crux of the matter is the bill as introduced would have eliminated chemical warfare materials from being considered controlled hazardous substances. So that's being corrected with the amendment so that that would remain, we would still have the ability to regulate those materials for permitting purposes, but in research, development, and demonstration purposes, there would be.
And the second was, I don't know if you've seen MedChi, our State Medical Society is, listed like 6, 7 points of concern, basically that if we're going to move the bill, we hopefully we've addressed it. So have you, Ms. Malone, have you seen these 6 points?
I do have a copy of that,
Okay.
sir, and
Well, if
they
you
were
could
very
speak to
kind to
them, that would
order
be-
that, and I could take them one at
Yes,
a
I think that
time
would be
if you
very
like.
helpful. Thank you.
So the first comment is about protection of persons in the most significant area of risk, or worst case scenario. And so before we do any chemical agent or operation, we have, as part of the Army safety program for chemical agent, have to assess what we call maximum credible event, or the worst case scenario incident that would cause an accident or potentially a release. And when we assess that, we are required, if there's any maximum credible event that allows that point of maximum impact, it must be on the depot. We cannot allow something to leave the depot as a maximum credible event, or we have to completely modify those layers of protection that I show you in the one-page information sheet so that they're adequately addressed. But we typically deal with this with our layers of protection system to make sure that that does not happen, and there's no way for that incident to leave the facility, let alone the garrison. The next question is about plans to present publicly to residents, local and state governments. What we're asking for today is to be allowed to participate in what's called a research, development, and demonstration permit application process. That's what our research, that's what we're doing, is developing and demonstrating technologies. That permitting process requires public notification, public meetings. We have to justify to not only the state regulators and the federal regulators, but the community, why we need to do the testing, how much agent we need to use as part of that test, and how long the test will last. And so there's a very rigorous public involvement period as part of that. The next question talks about public and government agencies being informed about the type and quantities of material to be in. So I think I just talked about types and quantities of material being included in that public participation process. Have safe alternatives been considered? And why do we need to do this in a densely populated state like Maryland? So however and whenever we can, we do use alternatives to incineration. We neutralized the stockpile that was stored here in Maryland. When we were called upon to destroy the first Syrian stockpile, we were able to use another technology. But technology is driven by the container that the agent's in. So if like the Maryland stockpile, Syria's stockpile was stored in big bulk containers. The problem we run into is countries like North Korea, Russia, China weaponize their chemical agents and have them in projectiles, mortars, bomblets, and these can't be neutralized. The Department of Defense spent $30 billion trying to do that very thing at facilities like Kentucky and Colorado, and basically we had to eventually augment those technologies with incineration to finish the destruction of those stockpiles. And the last question, have the appropriate Army officials inform Maryland Department of Health and the Environment on incineration plans at Aberdeen Proving Grounds? We go through a technology development process where we slowly build upon what we have and demonstrate it at lower levels. It's what we call technology readiness levels. Chemical agent testing for any technology is the very last step in the process. And so we currently don't have anything that is right at that place ready for chemical agent testing. However, when we do, as I said, we would go through the permitting process. I think that addresses all of the MedChi comments.
And if I may add, Mr. Chairman, you have in your bill files a letter of information from the Department of Health. It speaks for itself. I don't think there's any particular concern they have expressed. And also in response to a question originally raised by the Vice Chair, she may recall in 2021 about the lack of a documented support from the U.S. Army. There's also in your There is also in your file a letter from Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense at the time, Kingston Reef, who, Mr. Chairman, you will recall joined us at a May 29th meeting in the governor's office to express the U.S. Army's full-throated support for and need for this legislation. So I just wanted to point out those couple of things for you.
Okay, since Vice Chair Kagan's name was invoked, she has a question.
Literally, Bryson, my question was going to be whether, because I don't see a letter from Kingston, I just did a Control F here, so I don't see anything from any federal representative, either from the Biden or Trump administrations. Okay, I don't know why, okay, then I'm not seeing it.
It's coming from me, it'll be under my name.
It would be under Joan Smith.
Oh, there are a million Joan Smith things in here. I opened a bunch of them, and then I got overwhelmed by...
I think I uploaded like 8, but...
Something like I opened several, and, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's there somewhere.
Okay, we're going to go to Senator Carrozza next.
Thank you. I actually wanted to follow up on the letter from the Department of Defense as a former having served at the Pentagon in a similar type deputy assistant position. This is a significant letter. I congratulate you for navigating the bureaucracy to get this letter, and I was reading it because knowing that sometimes they can do a letter that doesn't really say anything. This is a significant letter. It talks about the Department of Defense considers the acceleration of research, development, prototyping, and testing to be a national defense priority and critical to the protection of our warfighters. And then it goes back and it actually highlights the Maryland connection with Aberdeen Proving Ground is the only place in the country where we can fabricate and store chemical agents at the quantities needed for defense research, development, and testing. My question is the coordination between APG and DOD, not only on this letter, but in working this issue.
Mr. Malone can address that.
Yeah, so the DOD, the DASD Reef's office, Threat Reduction and Arms Control, runs cyclical global threat assessments. And so they are looking across the world. What do we expect our adversaries to have? What are they developing? Do we have technologies that can address them? And so they then put the mission on us to figure out how to close those capability gaps. And so that's what we're really working towards today is developing the technologies to close the current capability gaps we have to deal with these chemical weapons.
Well, thank you. And again, I congratulate you on this letter.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, Senator Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you. I finally found that we've got so much information in this file. I was looking for it, but I believe that it was the thing that you did for us was submitted by Tom Albro, and it's called the Maryland Legislative one-page fact sheet. Is that what we're?
There's that, and there's also the two-pager that we put together on the safety features and otherwise the safety record of our.
That's the one that I'm looking at online.
Okay.
So my question is, can you just walk the committee through on the second page how the multiple layers work and the filters, and then clarify whether or not you have continuous real-time monitoring?
Yes.
I'll let Rob answer that question.
Thanks, Tom. So yeah, so our main chemical testing facility is a facility called the PDTDF. I know, it just trips right off the tongue, right? But it is at the very, very end of the Edgewood Peninsula and 8 miles from the town of Edgewood, which is our closest neighbor. That facility, funny enough, was built back in the 1940s designed around how the Germans made their manufacturing facilities, and the intent was we were going to bomb it at one point in time to make sure our bombs were effective. It is a robust concrete building that we have since installed an inner blast chamber and an outer blast chamber inside of to test the equipment we're talking about. The way the system is designed is that inner blast chamber is where any test equipment would be set up. It has a ventilation system that pulls the air from that chamber, which means all the outside air flows towards it. And the air gets pulled out of that building and sent through the carbon filter system, the redundant carbon filter systems that you see here that include a pre-filter, a HEPA filter, 2 layers of carbon filters, another HEPA filter, and you can see those little red stars there. They're in both the test area, the adjacent blast chamber area, and then the building area that we do near real-time monitoring with our low-level chemical agent monitors, or we call mini-cams. These are gas chromatograms that we designed and built to they're very robust. Normally, laboratory equipment's very finicky. Ours, so we can take them out into the field and operate them. They run continuously analyzing the air in our workspace at what we call the worker protection level, and that is a level that is safe for my workforce to be in 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 30 years of their lives without any health effects. And so we monitor at that level in the workspace. We also monitor between the carbon filter beds so that we're sure if we have any issues, if we're seeing any agent, we are able to shut down our test systems before that chemical agent can leave the facility. And then finally, we're monitoring at the stack to validate that we're not putting anything to the environment.
Okay, Senator Washington.
Again, thank you so much. So one of you said that there was a need to accelerate. Is it the creation? You're saying the response to chemical warfare or to create additional chemicals? I'm trying to get clear.
I think the
about
senator read it from the from Dasdy Reef's letter. The need to the DoD's need to accelerate research, development, and demonstration of technologies.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Could you give us some insight about the need to accelerate? And then I have a follow-up question.
So, it's interesting. When I started my career 20 years ago, you never heard of anyone ever using chemical agents. I think for the first 20 years of my career, there was one incident in a Japanese subway, if you remember, where a terrorist organization in Japan used chemical agents in a subway station. In the last 10 years, Syria has actively used it on their population. We've seen North Korea use it in several incidences to include on the brother of the president. We've seen Russia use it in Ukraine. There just seems to be this willingness to develop and use these items, and we've got to prepare both our troops and our and civilian workforce to deal with these problems when we come upon them.
I guess I want to understand, what you're doing. Would we be creating any? Or yeah. So how would we? So we'd have to you'd have to create some in order to test against it.
To test against it, yes.
So we would be creating chemicals.
So we are allowed under the international treaty. Every country in the world is allowed just to one location where they can store and maintain and create, synthesize chemical agent for defense purposes. And so to test gas masks and personal protective equipment, and for us, destruction equipment, so that we can treat these items. So yes, any chemical agent we don't have any more, we don't have a stockpile anymore, so we actually have to manufacture the agent to treat it.
So we would be manufacturing chemicals.
We do and have forever, yes.
Great, all right. So, so then the chemicals that you manufacture in this facility, it says the section does not apply to the incineration. So to get rid of, so I guess if you don't use it, where does the incineration come in?
Sure, good question, thank you. So the analogy I like to use is this. When we're training a soldier to go out into the field and we equip that soldier, we give that soldier a rifle and to go fight the enemy, right? Before that soldier goes overseas and fights the enemy, we both test that rifle to make sure it works and make sure he's comfortable in operating it. And that's really what we're talking about doing, is enabling our warfighters by testing the equipment that we need to use to destroy North Korea, Syria, Russia's chemical weapons before they hit the battlefield.
Right.
So we test and demonstrate that here so that they're ready and we know it works when they go there.
So so you'll produce and create chemical weapons, and then the chemical weapons that you don't need, you would incinerate them. So I just have a question this is coming from the Chesapeake physicians, and again, I don't know this area, so I'm genuinely asking this question, it's not rhetorical. It says, why is incineration being considered when you use another process of neutralization and not incineration? So could you talk about that
Can
part?
Rob,
Be
can I
helpful.
jump in a second to clarify? So, and Rob, maybe you can expand on this a little bit, but what they're looking to do, so they're creating the chemicals to be able to do the research and development. The research and development is on the technologies to be able to destroy the materials. Part of that process involves incineration. And so that's why they need to be able to do the incineration. And Rob can expand on this further, but my understanding from what he has told us is that they have tested other processes that do not involve incineration, and they are not as effective as incineration.
So there will be no incineration.
There will be, yeah, Rob, do you want
It
to?
doesn't seem like there's
Yeah,
like,
so
maybe.
let me hopefully help clarify. So that what we're testing are technologies that are incineration. We're not treating the leftover items by incineration. The technologies we need to test and demonstrate are incineration. So where the question came from about neutralization. So the stockpile here at Maryland and what we were initially given for Syria were large bulk containers of chemical agent. Think of a 55-gallon drum or a portable tank, something that you can see has a fill port, has a drain line on it that you can hook into. No explosives associated with it. We can do neutralization on chemical agent when it's like that, no problem, and we prefer to. It's highly reliable, it's fast, it's very effective. Right. The problem we run into is that the vast majority of our enemy's chemical weapons are weaponized. They are in artillery, mortars, bombs.
So then you need to be able to, in the field, neutralize it for the purpose of.
I need the technology that can both deal with the agent and the explosives that are around those things in a safe manner, and thermal technologies, incineration are the only ones that do that.
Got that. And I guess just finally, when it comes to the regulation of is it the case that MDE would send someone out on a weekly basis to make sure that it's adhering to local standards?
Yeah, we would have our inspectors are able to, they have as a condition of the permit, we have to be granted access to the facility. So we would have an inspection presence.
But you typically do the inspections, we had a bill, air quality. The department has said very often that it doesn't have the person power to do on-site, and instead it tends to use predicted, what is supposed to be predicted, what is supposed to be produced based on a particular engine, et cetera. So would you specifically would not be using any estimates of release rather than actually going and measuring it?
Well, I mean, these activities that would be covered by the permit, they would be sort of unique activities. So we would look at the activity that is permitted and then make decisions on what the appropriate response is, the appropriate
So
level of
it might not include
presence.
actual measurement of.
Well, we would, they would, in the permit, there would be conditions on operating conditions, and we would check records, and we would make sure that they are following the permit conditions. That would be the principle.
The permit conditions, but not the actual testing of the.
Right, they would be required to have all sorts of monitoring records, the mini cams type devices that they have, that we would make sure that those were calibrated properly, that they were operable and so on. If there were any instances where those were out of service, we'd make sure that no activities.
It sounds like your standard practice for, ensuring that we have clean air. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none. We do have one unfavorable witness before we get to Senator Kramer. And it's Gwen Dubois from the Chesapeake Physicians for Social Responsibility. Will come up here, signed up unfavorable. And Ms. Dubois, we're going to have you on the 2.5-minute clock, and you're unfavorable. And when you're ready, just proceed, okay?
Dr. Dubois.
Dr. Dubois.
Yeah,
okay.
and thank you.
No, doctor. Welcome.
I worked hard for it. Thank you for letting me speak.
I'm president of Chesapeake Physicians for Social Responsibility. We are a statewide evidence-based organization of over 900 physicians, other healthcare providers, and supporters. And our mission is really to deal with the existential threats to public health, including nuclear weapons, the climate crisis, and pollution and toxic pollution. And that's why I'm here today. And we have a very unfavorable response to this bill. Our motto is we must prevent what we cannot cure. And that's what we're here about, trying to prevent something that could be bad. SB 253, which presents a potential threat to the public health of Marylanders. The Department of Commerce tells us, well, we don't need to worry because MDE is doing a great job of monitoring hazardous waste, but the whole purpose of this bill is to exempt MDE. And what is it exempting MDE from? Well, it says complying with federal and state toxic air pollution standards, removal efficacy of greater than 99%, so they're not going to remove all the chemicals by incineration, developing a plan for protecting people at greatest risk, and presenting it to the local governments, considering safer alternatives. The Aberdeen Proving Grounds got rid of the chemical waste, 5% of the nation's chemical waste storage, with neutralization, not incineration, because it's in a populous area. There are over 250,000 people who live in Harford County. There are camps across the river at Kent County. I know one of my children went to Echo Hill. They were right across the river. Monitoring data. They're exempted from monitoring data regularly, continuously, and reporting it to the Department of the Environment. Did I say they're exempt from safer alternatives, specifying in the permit how much? And there's no sunset category here that could go on in perpetuity. So again, why do we really need this bill if Maryland Department of the Environment is going to be doing such good overview and accounting and data collecting and making sure the population is safe? Why do we cede to public health protections to the Department of Defense now under new leadership, but you know, any leadership, that's a big responsibility, and to a private company that's involved in doing this? If Maryland Department of the Environment is going to monitor this extremely hazardous carcinogenic waste, then why do we need to pass this exemption bill?
Okay, thank you. Any questions for our witness?
And I'm sorry if it was too fast.
That's
I hope
good.
you
Doctor,
understand.
Dr. DuBois? Okay, seeing none, thank you. That concludes the bill hearing on Senate Bill 253. We're going to next go to Senator Kramer. Senate Bill 113. Senator, why don't you come up here? And you've got several panelists, mix of in-person and virtual. Your in-person panelists are Christopher Woolleyhand. Is Christopher here? Chris Truffer and Joshua Fine. And then we've got some virtual witnesses as well, signed up favorable. So we're going to start. Okay, no hugging. That's against the EEE rules. Okay, Senator Kramer, it's all yours on Senate Bill 113.
And thank you for that, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, colleagues. Ben Kramer here introducing Senate Bill 113. Colleagues, this should sound vaguely familiar. The bill was here last session. I have very high hopes for its passage this session, and it's a very easy bill to process. I don't think there will be a whole lot of questions. Colleagues, this bill simply creates a position on our State Board of Education, rightfully so, for a principal. We currently have a student member, we have a parent member, we have a teacher member, but most importantly, the folks who run the schools, the administrators, the folks who know what's going on in every school in our state, they're not represented on the board. We have got to have this important voice on our State Board of Education. How it came to pass that this has not happened to date escapes me, because the principal's voice has got to be one of the most important to have on our state board. It defies logic that we don't. Now, colleagues, I was remiss when I submitted the bill to drafting this year to not include the amendment that I brought to the committee last year. So the amendment was drafted. It has been, I hope, sent to the committee, and the amendment addresses the only concerns that our state board had last year and that the state board has this year. And in fact, if you recall, last year the state board came in and testified in support of the bill with the amendments that are again being offered this year. The bill as it reads right now creates a 14th member of the board. The amendment keeps it at the 13 members, but simply says one of those members is going to be a principal. That's what the state board asked for. That's what the amendment does. The state board also asked last year that we simplify the process for selecting the principal member. So again, this year's amendment reflects that request that state board had asked for. And so now the state board, unless something has changed, and I read whatever concerns they had this year, and they were the exact same concerns expressed last year. So I'm going to work on the assumption that they are now comfortable with the bill. And finally, the one other piece that is addressed in the amendment is that we are not midstream going to be changing out a member and bring in a principal. The next time there's a vacancy, that's when we will move a principal onto the board. So the amendment addresses all of the concerns of the Maryland State Board of Education. Again, it's my fault that I did not ensure that when the bill was drafted this year that it reflected the amendment that came to this committee last session. So the amendment is back with the committee again. With that, colleagues, this is just a common sense measure to ensure that we are getting the very best representation across our state for our students in our public schools. With that, I certainly would welcome any questions, and I've got a great panel here, Mr. Chair, that certainly will discuss further.
Why don't we, let's take your in-person panel, and then we'll take questions, then we'll go to our virtual witnesses. So whoever wants to start, you're going to be on a clock, though, 2.5 minutes each. And so let's get that in the queue, 2.5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee members. My name is Christopher Woolleyhan. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Association of Elementary School Principals, a professional organization with members in all 24 Maryland districts. Our organization provides service, support, and advocacy for current and aspiring school leaders across this great state. I'm here to speak in favor of Senate Bill 113. I will note, though, that today, with your briefings from the AIB and PZAM, our case was kind of made for us. If I'm sure you're listening passionately to their testimony and their briefing, where they acknowledged all that's on the plates of teachers. So much falls to principals, and yet they have no voice at the state board level. We are also hoping that this is actually our third time attempting to get this bill out and passed. We hope the third time is a charm. We believe Senate Bill 113 should be an easy decision for Maryland lawmakers. The current state board, again, as you've heard, includes students, parents, and teachers. It's time to add a sitting principal. Having a school principal in the State Board of Education will offer invaluable perspectives and insights into the practical realities of running schools. Principals are on the front lines every day, dealing with daily challenges, interacting with students, teachers, and parents, and implementing educational policies at the ground level. Their experiences will provide a crucial link crucial link between policymaking and the actual impact it has on students and in schools. The blueprint for Maryland's future, which you heard much about again today, has placed significant responsibilities at the feet of Maryland principals. They accept those responsibilities. They truly accept them with grace and a firm commitment to their students. The reality is that there's been a disconnect in Maryland between building-level school administrators and state-level decision makers. Including a principal in the state board will help foster collaboration and communication between policymakers and practitioners, leading to more informed decision-making and improve the quality of education statewide. Thank you to Senator Kramer for sponsoring this bill, and thank you to the Senate Education, Energy, and Environment Committee for holding today's hearing. We are grateful for your advocacy on behalf of students, parents, teachers, and of course, principals. We hope you'll give a favorable report to Senate Bill 113. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and Education, Energy, and Environment Committee members. My name is Chris Truffer, and I am the Executive Director for the Maryland Association of Secondary School Principals, representing secondary level school administrators across the entire state of Maryland. We work to ensure that school leaders are empowered, developed, and connected, and advocate on their behalf for the betterment of our students, schools, and communities. It is a pleasure and honor to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 113. The success of our schools rests on the ability of principals to fully understand and effectively execute policies, regulations, and laws related to a wide variety of topics, including, but not restricted to, school safety, security, student academic achievement, health and well-being, curricular implementation, implementation of Blueprint, which you heard about extensively earlier today, and myriad additional issues, such as cell phone usage, which you also heard about. These are challenges that face the state educational system and, in turn, each of our local districts. Having a principal on the State Board of Education can create greater synergy between policymakers and implementers and can foster more productive collaboration, enhance communication, and help craft better informed decisions, including the vital perspective of principals as a conduit of not only information, but knowledge, expertise, and a worldview that spans across the educational landscape can only enhance and strengthen what is ultimately implemented at the school level. Principals have a deep and thorough understanding of the needs of Maryland's diverse student populations, including those with disabilities, English language learners, students from low-income families, advanced learners, and those with other needs requiring a varied and broad set of supports. Their input can guide the implementation and development of equitable policies that address the varied needs of Maryland's eclectic student body. In this way, having a principal on the Maryland State Board of Education ensures that decisions are made with a comprehensive understanding of the on-the-ground realities of running a school and supporting all students' success. Thank you, Senator Kramer, for your passionate support and sponsorship of this bill, and thank you to the Senate Education, Energy, and Environment Committee for holding today's hearing. We are grateful for your collective advocacy on behalf of students, parents, teachers, staff, and our dedicated principals and administrators. We hope you will give a favorable report to Senate Bill 113. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Senator Feldman, Senator Kagan, and members of the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. My name is Dr. Joshua Fine, an elementary school principal in Montgomery County, Maryland, and the president of the Maryland Association for Elementary School Principals, MAESP. I am here to share the many voices of my principal colleagues across the state to advocate for this committee to move forward Bill SB 113, which will place a principal on the State Board of Education. As the leader of this organization, I've heard a desire from my colleagues to work more closely with state leaders around policy initiatives to ensure the success of our schools and students. In this time where we are evaluating the blueprint for Maryland's future, I sit before you to emphasize that a principal's perspective is more crucial now than ever. It is essential to connect the policies emanating from Annapolis to the realities faced in classrooms throughout Maryland. Our role as principals involves interpreting state policies and laws daily, ensuring they are executed with fidelity. Throughout my tenure as principal, we have navigated a pandemic, a shifting political landscape, and an ever-evolving public education environment. During this time, there have been instances where well-intentioned policies or initiatives from the state have been inconsistently implemented. This often occurred because there wasn't a school leader's voice at the table to discuss the practical implications of these initiatives, including identifying potential benefits and pitfalls before they were enacted. Principals are the critical intersection of policy and educational practice. Having a principal on the State Board of Education would provide the necessary perspective to advance the work of the blueprint and other initiatives, ultimately benefiting families and children in Maryland. Therefore, I wholeheartedly advocate for this committee to move forward with Bill SB 113 to place a principal on the State Board of Education. Together, we can ensure that our policies not only reflect our aspirations, but also lead to meaningful improvements in our schools. Thank you for your time and consideration.
What elementary school, Montgomery? Yeah.
Flower Hill Elementary School, right outside Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Okay, we've heard it. We've heard of Gaithersburg.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we go to the virtual witnesses, we'll start with questions for Senator Kramer or the in-person panel. We're going to start with Senator Watson.
Thank you. Thank you all for your service. I appreciate your fervor and your testimony. However, I have a couple questions. I served on a school board, and one of the rules were that if you're a current teacher, you cannot serve on a school board. Do you agree with that?
Couldn't hear the question, Senator, I'm sorry.
If you are a current teacher, you cannot serve on the school board in my county. And the reason why is because it's a conflict of interest. You cannot get up there and make policies on your own job. I read the bill, Senator, and I see this just one notch up. You're going to have an existing principal who is in a position to create policy for themselves. That's a conflict of interest. The information, hang on, the information that comes before the board could be administrative in nature and applied directly to your schools. Sure, you could recuse yourself, but that's a conflict of interest. And I don't think you give enough value to past principals. Talk a lot about current principals. But we have plenty of past principals, plenty former teachers who serve on the board. So these are my hesitations, with this bill. Because if it's not workable at a local level, what makes you think it's workable at a state level?
May I share with you that currently the teacher appointed to the State Board of Education, and I don't know how it is done within Prince George's County, but currently the teacher on the state board is a teacher in the classroom. And that perspective, I think, is critically important, not to say that a retired teacher or a retired principal would not be in a position to offer thoughtful commentary as to what is being discussed within the board, but the notion that someone who is currently in the classroom and someone who is currently a parent of a student in a school, because that's the parent's position on the board, and the student is a current student in the classroom. So this is nothing but continuity and consistency with how it is currently done, current practice. This maintains that continuity.
You're very convincing there, Senator.
And
it still doesn't negate what I'm trying to say. Even if you have a teacher on there, how can a teacher effect policy over the principal who they report to in the school in which they are employed? For me, that is a conflict of interest. I don't see how that's workable, having an existing principal in that function. I just don't see it.
Evidently, that is not an issue that has reared its ugly head in all the years that we have had these positions in place as they exist right now with our state board. Clearly, that has not been an issue that has surfaced. So once again, I don't know how it is done in Prince George's County.
Is it done in other
State
states?
Board of Education.
Is it currently done in other states?
And there are, by the way, certain limitations as to what issues the teachers can vote on. It would apply similarly to the principals.
So you can put guardrails on it. What other states are these in? I'm asking you, gentlemen.
Yeah, specifically, I don't know. There aren't many states with principals, but there are lots of states with teachers.
I'm aware of that, but I'm talking specifically to this bill. What other states currently have principals, serving principals on the state board?
Yeah, I think Maryland could be the first, which would be a great victory for Maryland, yeah.
I thought you'd say that. I don't have any more questions,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. One final, I mean, we had a good colloquy here. Did you want to additional comment, or can we just, we can move on?
No,
We got 3 virtual witnesses, I think, would like to get in here.
please.
Yeah.
Go to the virtual.
Okay, so I think that'll conclude the questioning there. We're going to go to our 3 virtual witnesses that are part of Senator Kramer's panel. We'll start with you, Melissa Schindel, and you're going to be on the 2-minute clock, okay? I mean, 2.5 minutes, I apologize. 2.5 minutes. Melissa, why don't you start?
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Melissa Schindel, and I'm here to urge favorable passage for Senate Bill 113. I'm the proud principal of Glenwood Middle School in Howard County, and I'm also the Maryland representative to the National Association of Secondary School Principals, which means I interact with and I'm here today representing secondary school principals across the state. I've been an administrator in both Prince George's and Howard County Public Schools, and I've served 16 years as a middle school principal in 4 very different schools. As a school principal, I have firsthand experience with the day-to-day operations of a school. A principal's perspective is global. We have a keen understanding of the complex inner workings of a school community, which balances the needs of children with the implementation of educational decisions and policies. We make hundreds of decisions each day, and we understand the opportunities and challenges associated with implementing new initiatives, mandated policies, and exciting opportunities at the school level. Our experiences and perspectives consider all voices, not only those of school leaders, but also those of teachers, students, parents, support staff, and community stakeholders. Principals are charged with implementing the policies, programs, and initiatives of the State Board of Education, such as the Blueprint, which you heard about earlier today, in addition to those of federal, state, and local boards and legislators. We ensure compliance. Accountability falls on our shoulders, and we do everything we can to ensure the highest levels of success and achievement for our children. Having a principal on the State Board of Education brings our breadth and depth of experience into critical decisions that impact our schools, teachers, administrators, communities, and most of all, our students. The voice and perspective of a principal on the state board can only help strengthen the multitude of programs and initiatives in our school and in our state that will ultimately make public education in Maryland world-class. If we are truly committed to providing the very best for our children, then it is crucial that a principal have a position on the Maryland State Board of Education, and I urge favorable passage of Senate Bill 113. Thank you so much for your consideration and support.
Okay, why don't we go, Doctor, why don't we, I apologize, whoever wants to pop in here, I lost the list here real quick. Okay, Dr. Rachel Edaho-Eckett, why don't you go next 2.5 minutes, and then we'll take questions of any of the 3 witnesses, okay? Doctor?
Yes, thank you so much. Dear Chair, Madam Chair, Senator Kramer, and members of the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee, thank you so much for having us today. My name is Dr. Rachel Edaho-Eckett. I am the principal of Waterloo Elementary School in Howard County, Maryland, and I come with 20 years of experience in public education. I'm here today representing both my own experiences and the collective voices of the Maryland Association of Elementary School Principals, where I am the president-elect, and the Maryland Association of Secondary School Principals to strongly support the passage of Bill SB 113, which would include a principal on the State Board of Education. As principals, we are uniquely positioned to bridge the gap between policy and practice. Every day, I have the opportunity to witness incredible work happening in our schools. For instance, our school is currently implementing Pillar 1 of the Maryland Blueprint, which includes expansion of high-quality pre-kindergarten. Our 4-year-olds are soaring academically thanks to the policies which the state has, which includes enhanced curriculum and the recruitment and retention of highly qualified teachers. In order to support students, it is important to have practical input from principals to help ground ambitious policies in the realities of the classroom. In conversations with my colleagues across the state, there is a shared passion for working hand in hand with our State Board of Education. Including a principal on the board would ensure that the voices of those closest to the students, staff, and families are represented when decisions are being made that impact our school communities. Having our perspective at the table can help craft policies that are both visionary and practical to ensure success. This bill isn't just about adding another voice. It's about ensuring that the voice belongs to someone who sees the faces behind the data and the stories behind the statistics every single day. I urge you to provide a favorable report to Bill 113 to help ensure that principals can continue to meaningfully contribute to shaping the future of education in our great state. Thank you for your time and for considering this important step forward for education.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. We're going to go to Mr. Brown, Michael Brown, be our final witness.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and the members of the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. My name is Michael C. Brown, and I am the president of the Maryland Association of Secondary School Principals. It is an honor to represent secondary school leaders across the state and to provide testimony in support of SB 113. As principals, we are at the forefront of education, working tirelessly to implement policies, regulations, and programs that impact the lives of students, staff, and communities. Our work spans critical areas such as school safety, student achievement, mental health, equity, and the implementation of the blueprint for Maryland's future. Having a principal's voice on the Maryland State Board of Education is not just beneficial, it is essential. Principals are uniquely positioned to provide valuable insights into the day-to-day realities of running schools. We understand the challenges and opportunities that come with educating Maryland's diverse student populations, including English language learners, students with disabilities, and those from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. Our perspectives ensure that policies are not only well-informed, but also practical and equitable in their application. Including a principal on the state board will foster stronger collaboration between policymakers and practitioners, bridging the gap between decision-making and implementation. It will enhance communication, provide a clearer understanding of the needs of schools, and ultimately lead to more effective and impactful policies. I want to thank Senator Kramer for sponsoring this important bill and the members of this committee for your dedication to Maryland's students and educators. On behalf of MASSP and the principals I represent, I urge you to give Senate Bill 113 a favorable report. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for any of our three virtual witnesses? Okay, thank you to all the witnesses. Thank you, Senator Kramer. That concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 113. We're going to next, I know we've got one of our cabinet secretaries here in the House, so we're going to shift over to Senate Bill 8, Senators Kagan and Reedy. And I'm going to call some witnesses up here, including Secretary Montero. Well, you tell whoever you want to bring up. So Senator Kagan will go up to the podium, and then you just whoever you want to bring up as your panel. And is Senator Reedy planning to testify on this bill? Okay, we've got Secretary Montero. Got several witnesses also signed up. Jaya Patel, Lena Moriel Scott, Anissa Khalil. I don't know. Who do you want to consider your panel here beyond?
So this is
Senator
the
Reedy?
panel. We have one student who's coming up, right?
Okay, what's your name? What's our student's name?
Gia.
Okay, okay. Okay, well, let's start with this group, and then we will go to some other witnesses who did sign up. I don't know if they're here, but.
No, so, Mr. Chair, for the record, Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. This committee and the full Senate has seen the wisdom of passing this bill unanimously twice. So with the exception of one new senator on this committee and a few in the chamber, I really don't want to take a lot of people's time, but these fine folks are generous enough to be here, so I want to refresh everybody as to what it does, but we're going to be super brief because it's been a long day. So this is a voluntary program that frankly was initiated by our friend and colleague Senator Reedy, and then he and I have worked collaboratively the last 2 years on this, and the Maryland State Department of Education, the Department of Service and Civic Innovation, and others have all endorsed this, the state teachers and others, because this is going to be making sure that our future leaders are trained and engaged in our communities. And we have seen the challenges when people are ill-informed or not engaged. And we are in a real pivotal point right now in our society, in our country, and not trying to be partisan. It's a very nonpartisan effort, but people need to understand and care about their community and their future. And so this is about opportunities to recognize students and schools that offer that kind of civic engagement. And with that, I'd like to toss it to Senator Reedy and then to Secretary Montero.
Okay, welcome, Senator Reedy.
Thank you very much. And this is, as Senator Kagan mentioned, I will not belabor the point for too long. This is legislation that Justin Reedy did not come up with on my own. It was actually a 2017 recommendation by the Civic Architecture Symposium that MSDE at that time conducted. And they came out with a report a couple years later with all these recommendations. And you know, we wanted to get them implemented, but things, obviously there was a lot going on from 2020 to 2021, 2022. We thought try to work on this issue. I really believe it's so important. We're all seeing it every day. We'll have people contact our offices and they don't really, and not that I would expect people to know exactly what all the different responsibilities are, but people don't always know what's going on in their government, and then all of a sudden something hits them and they contact us. And we want to encourage people, obviously, to be engaged, you know, in their community, engaged in government and politics. With this, we simply want to be sure that there's an opportunity for students who really show outstanding effort in getting engaged in civics to be recognized, and we want to recognize schools that promote civic engagement as well. And so it's not a mandate. It's not a mandate. And I know we've passed it unanimously before. There's a good bit of information in my testimony about how this would work and how school systems that have at least 75% of students that have earned this 50, right? 50, not 75, 50%. The students have earned this designation, can be recognized as well. We really just want to give students who take the extra effort to be involved in their community recognition, and obviously promote it to other students so that they can really understand how their local, state, and national government works, and also things that are going on in their community that are positive. So, you know, more engagement at a young age will promote sort of a lifelong commitment to being engaged and involved at whatever they end up doing in their careers. So we would ask for, again, your favorable support, and I'd be happy to turn it over to the next person.
Okay, we'll go
to the Secretary.
Mr. Secretary, welcome.
Thank you very much, Chair Feldman, Senator Reedy, Vice Chair Kagan. For the record, I'm Paul Montero, Secretary for the Maryland Department of Service and Civic Innovation, here to express my strong support for Senate Bill 8, as I did last session as well. In an era where civic engagement is more crucial than ever, the bill provides an opportunity to foster a deeper understanding of the civic duties among our students. And by recognizing students in schools who excel in promoting civic readiness, we can set a standard for others to aspire to and begin to address the erosion of social capital we're seeing across too many communities. The program's voluntary nature allows local school systems to participate without a mandate, ensuring flexibility and local control. And the requirement for participating schools to submit annual reports to the Department of Education allows us to have accountability and access some valuable data at our department as we focus on civic innovation and leveraging service to build social capital across lines of division. So I urge the committee to give this bill a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Why don't you go? Yep.
To the honorable committee members, my name is Jia Patel and I'm a resident of Anne Arundel County. I'm here to express my strong support for Senate Bill 8, which seeks to establish the Maryland Seal of Civic Excellence program. As a student and advocate, a part of the Maryland Civic Education Coalition, I have noticed firsthand the importance of civic education in shaping responsible, informed, and educated citizens. Unfortunately, civic engagement often takes a backseat in our educational system, and this bill offers a critical opportunity to change that. The Maryland Seal of Civic Excellence will encourage students to engage more deeply with civic education and activities, and highlight the importance of staying critically informed on local, state, and national issues, as well as inspire schools to integrate more civic learning into their curricula. This civic seal is critical in order to engage youth in community matters, especially those that come from less experience and opportunities. As of 2020, there are 53,000 first-generation and 105,000 second-generation immigrant students in Maryland who are enrolled in higher education. As schools are inspired to fuse civics with active learning, then students coming from immigrant families who are not used to civic processes will be influenced to pursue civic-related action at the secondary education level and then continue it to their higher education goals. Many students have family members who are also able to connect them to certain foundations that provide civic education and learning. However, a vast amount of students require avenues to engage, whether it's through research and connection building as civic education is provided in schools. This recognition would amplify the voices of the youth for the long term, allowing a deeper engagement and opportunity to advocate for civic action. In conclusion, Senate Bill 8 is an investment in the future of Maryland's democracy. By supporting this bill, the committee will help ensure that Maryland students are empowered to actively contribute to their communities. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, esteemed committee members. My name is Jeannie Massey. I work with the Maryland Civic Education Coalition, and I live in Washington County. I'm here on behalf of the coalition to express our support for this bill for the third time. We do have a cross-file in the House, and we're excited to see it progress. Today was our first hearing there. Civic engagement is the cornerstone of a thriving democracy, and we know that students across Maryland have to take core social studies classes and do some service learning in order to graduate. Sadly, a lot of students see that as simply one more hoop to jump through. It's more of a, that's what somebody else wants me to do. I don't invest in it because it's relevant to me. We hope that this program will establish a sense of honor and prestige for the kids who really do invest in civic learning and civic participation. We want parents standing up at graduation cheering for civic engagement, not just academics and sports and so forth. We want to remember that schools are centers for democratic praxis and that students can be part of the decision-making at the local, state, and federal level. Civics equips students with the skills to thrive in an increasingly complex world, and we hope that this committee will again support this, SB 8 this year, to establish the Maryland Seal of Civic Excellence. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Just to note, several other people from the same civic associate are signed up, but I assume they don't need to testify. Okay. Questions for Senator Kagan, the Secretary, Senator Reedy? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, colleagues.
And do we know if Senator Waldstreicher is en route? If not, I could do my bill. Want me to just do my bill? Okay. Okay, Vice Chair Kagan, you're going to have to man the post here for this Feldman bill here.
Okay. I guess we're not going to do it. Senator Washington, can you do it for a second?
Yeah.
And I think don't change your, you do it from your seat.
Yeah. Do you remember the?
Pass me the.
Yes.
Greetings, colleagues. We're here to hear Senate Bill SB 293.
Correct.
Feldman.
Thank you, Senator Washington. So this is a cross-file bill introduced by Chairs Corman and Atterbury on the House side, which is also being heard today. I characterize this as a corrective bill to address an oversight in a piece of legislation we passed last year. So quickly, by way of background, last year, the committee heard House Bill 1386, sponsored by Chair Atterbury. It was part of the Speaker's package of bills she referred to as her decency agenda. The bill passed and required the State Department of Education to develop guidelines for anti-bias training program for school employees. If you recall, passed out of this committee. It also requires that the county boards of education offer that training. So subsequent to the passage of the bill became law, it was determined that that term school employees does not include Board of Ed members. So last year's Atterbury bill, in effect, the law now did not extend to Board of Education members. So all SB 293 does is it requires the County Board of Education members complete the same anti-bias training that's currently required for school employees under last year's bill. The training must be completed at least once during the member's term. So we're talking about an hour or two of training during the entirety of their term. And so we have consistency now from the top down. I was in touch with Maryland State Department of Education this past week. They're currently working on finalizing those guidelines. So again, that's basically all the bill does. There is one piece of written unfavorable from Washington County that appears directed at last year's bill. They don't seem to be aware of the bill that passed last year. It says basically the central point they make is currently they state that each county has the ability to choose whether or not to implement anti-bias training. They don't like the mandate. The fact is they are, in fact, required under last year's bill to do anti-bias training for school employees. All this bill does is add Board of Education members to current law. And so that's, in effect, where we're at. And I've got two panelists. I've got Abigail Snyder and Sherry Branson. If they want to come up and, or I don't know, are you part of the panel?
Sherry left.
Okay, Sherry left
for the evening.
Okay,
but Deb Miller is here from the
okay, we've got a panel of two, and that's the extent of the testimony. Okay. Okay. And with that, I would ask for a favorable on Senate Bill 293.
Like to start first?
Good evening, Chairman Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. I am Deborah Miller, the Director of Maryland Government and Community Relations for the JCRC of Greater Washington. And as many of you know, we represent over 100 social service agencies, synagogues, and schools in the region. We have a robust education division which focuses on combating school-based anti-Semitism, advocating on behalf of Jewish students, families, and employees in promoting safe, hate-free learning environments for all students. And I'm here today in support of Senate Bill 293, which would require County Board of Ed members to undergo anti-bias training. As you just heard Chairman Feldman describe, a similar bill passed last year in the General Assembly for school employees, but did not include school board members. So this legislation will close that loophole. Dramatic spikes in anti-Semitism over the last several years have been well documented and shows no signs of abating. According to the latest ADL report, Maryland ranks 7th in terms of the greatest number of anti-Semitic incidents in the country in 2023, which is a 211% increase from the previous year. And the vast majority of those incidents occur at Montgomery County Public Schools. In our experience working extensively with MCPS, educators often do not have a deep understanding of exactly who Jews are and what anti-Semitism is. They also might have a limited cultural competency about Jewish practice, Jewish history, and the importance of Israel to most American Jews. The JCRC strongly believes that the school board members should have a baseline competency in all forms of hatred, including anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and racism. This knowledge will help them and help their schools respond swiftly and effectively to all bias incidents. We therefore ask for a favorable report for Senate Bill 293.
Thank you. To alert those who are viewing from home, for some reason, the camera's not showing our panel, so just letting them know we're not able to see it. Okay.
Next. Okay. Good evening, Acting Madam Chair. Mr. Chair, thank you so much for the bill, and Madam Vice Chair. For the record, Abby Snyder, Director of Government Relations for the Baltimore Jewish Council, which represents the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and all of its agencies, here today in support of SB 293. I won't belabor the point, but I do just want to share it's no secret that anti-Semitism and other forms of hate continue to plague our schools. Just last week, there was an incident at Towson High School where our Executive Director, Howard Libbett's daughter goes, where there was a swastika drawn in the bathroom. It's imperative that our leaders in the school system are equipped with knowledge to hold conversations to explain to students why this behavior is unacceptable. By expanding this anti-bias training requirement to our county school boards, we're ensuring that those who are tasked with general control and oversight of our school systems and educational interests are also equipped with the proper understanding of how to handle implicit bias events using evidence-based guidelines. And for these reasons, we ask for a favorable report on SB 293. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a virtual witness? Yes. Lauren Pruitt. Thank you. Lauren, please, you may begin.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Pruitt, and I'm the legal director at Free State Justice. SB 293 addresses an urgent need in our educational system to fill a gap that exposes vulnerable students to harmful and discriminatory policies. No student should have to navigate an educational environment that does not recognize their identity or appreciate their unique challenges. Unfortunately, county board members may unintentionally perpetuate biases that have dire consequences without the proper training. This is especially true for LGBTQ+ youth, especially those students of color and those with disabilities, students who already bear the burden of existing systemic inequities. Research shows that supportive school environments significantly reduce rates of suicide and mental health issues among LGBTQ+ youth. Additionally, studies indicate that LGBTQ+ affirming schools lead to lower rates of bullying, not just among LGBTQ+ students, but across the entire student body. SB 293 aims to create inclusive educational settings where all students can thrive by promoting awareness and understanding through implicit anti-bias training. It empowers county board members to implement policies that uphold the dignity and safety of every student rather than allowing implicit biases to guide their decision-making. When we foster an environment of acceptance and support, we protect the most vulnerable, particularly those who lack access to supportive spaces outside of school. By mandating anti-bias training for county board members, we are taking a significant step toward a more equitable, safe, and inclusive educational environment for all students, regardless of their identity or background. I strongly encourage you to issue a favorable report for SB 293. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe we have another person favorable, but that is for, we've just heard from the sponsor panel. So if there's anyone else here, I have Sherry Branson favorable. She's not here? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. So that's our favorable panel. We have one unfavorable testifying in person. Okay, that's not, okay, they're not, he left, okay. All right, that is our hearing for Senate Bill 293.
Okay, so we've got Senator Waldstreicher here, and we're going to go to Senate Bill 29. Senator Waldstreicher, why don't you come up? I don't know who you want to bring up, but you've got Senator Reedy with you. And the other three witnesses who signed up are Rebecca Snyder, James York, and Krish Puda. I don't know if they're here. Yeah, Rebecca?
Actually, I signed up for Reneen, who's a student. So.
Okay, that's fine. We'll let Senator, you just bring up whoever you think is part of, who you want.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I think every parent especially has a moment where they become radicalized about cell phones in schools. And for some, it's a call from a teacher saying that a child is too distracted to participate meaningfully, and that this addictive product is negatively impacting their achievement. For some, it's a conversation with a child, usually a daughter, about how social media and Instagram particularly is affecting the mental health of girls in our schools, especially around the issue of body image. For me, it was a video I saw shot on a cell phone in actually your district, Mr. Chairman, at Churchill High School. There was a boy who was getting just pummeled, not bullied, not beat up, just completely pulverized by 2 or 3 other boys while lying defenseless on the ground. And the first thing that the perpetrators did when they were done taking that video at Churchill, of course, was to post it online. Cell phones are a scourge in our schools. They distract from academic achievement. They degrade students' mental health. They are despised by our hero educators. They are a clear vector for violence in our schools. And it's time to do something. And Senate Bill 29 is a start. The bill creates a flexible pilot program for phone-free schools in 2 very different jurisdictions, Montgomery County and Carroll County. Montgomery County is urban and diverse. Carroll County is more rural and more homogeneous, and that's on purpose. The idea here is that the pilot can be proof of concept that phone-free schools can work anywhere across our great state. Importantly, the pilot retains local control under the bill. The phone-free policy that is asked for by the bill is defined locally by each jurisdiction, and the data they collect is then kicked up to the state so that other jurisdictions can see that the policy is working. Note that we're also not so rigid that we impinge on student rights. In the bill, we explicitly make an exception for phones when used as an accommodation for students with disabilities or when required for academic use. Let me conclude with this. I think when Senator Reedy and I came up with this idea, we thought we might be the only phone-free school bill this year, and I'm glad that we were very wrong about that. I'm heartened by the idea that many of us have reached that inflection point. We've all come to the same conclusion. We must do something, and we must do something this legislative session. And so, Mr. Chairman, colleagues, if this bill seems like the way forward, that's wonderful. If you want to use it as a vehicle to combine all the other phone-free school bills into this one, that's fantastic. If you prefer to use a different vehicle and integrate some of the ideas in this bill into that other bill, that's 100% cool by me. But we can't keep going like we're going. It's time to make substantial progress. Mr. Chairman, I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 29.
Okay, thank you, Senator Waldstreicher. Senator Reedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just appreciate Senator Waldstreicher's working together on this. As you can see, I don't think there's he and I are very friendly on a personal level, but we have a lot of policy disagreements, and so it's great to see us come together. It just shows you the urgency of this issue. At the same time, I've been more and more investigating. My wife is a classroom teacher at the elementary level, and so the cell phone issue has not been as much there, but it's starting. It's starting in a lot of places. We now have a generation of children, and even a generation a little older, that really don't know what it's like to not have the ubiquitous cell phone at all times. And we now know, we're seeing more and more, that it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's a bit of a mind-warping, even in the best of circumstances, with the best parenting to try to control it, once that device becomes part of a young person's life, it is very, very hard for them to see the world the way we all, I think, saw it when we were growing up. And, we, the adults, sometimes are also guilty of letting it become a big part of our lives in a way that it shouldn't be. So what this bill, the goal of this bill is really to get data from two different jurisdictions. Carroll County already has a program now they've put in place. In fact, we may tweak this a little because I found out a couple of things in the bill need to be adjusted because we're trying to allow them, they have a phone-free program. It's different at 3 levels. The elementary is 1 level, middle and high are different levels. But the goal of all of it is nothing in not having it in the classroom. Classroom instruction time is so vital for our children. And they lost it for a long time. We've come through the pandemic. There's a lot out there about some of the learning loss and issues that come from that. And somehow, though, sometimes the obstacle to this reforming on phones can be parents who understandably are concerned about being able to get a hold of their children, being able to have their children get a hold of them. So we're trying to have a common sense approach that says you're not saying turn the cell phone over when you walk into school and you get it back at the end of the day. But on the other hand, we want to have we want to encourage limits to cell phones, particularly during instruction time. And so we're trying to leave this open to where it can be something where two jurisdictions work on the issue, can give us data as a way to supply it to the rest of the state. I don't support mandating one type of phone program for the entire state. I know we agree on that. I really believe in local control, but we want to be able to encourage and help give good data, resources, and information, and also show school systems that, hey, it may seem scary because you will get some negative interaction at first. But what's happening in a lot of other states is that when they go phone free, the kids actually tell them after a month or two, I like this. It's a safe space. It's a safe space that I don't have to always be thinking about what's going on online. So I've said enough. We look forward to working with the committee and supporting efforts on phone-free classrooms. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll wait any questions, and we'll have other witnesses.
I wonder if Senator Watson, do you have a quick? No, I'm just teasing. I just have to say that a Kagan-Reedy bill followed by a Wall-Striker-Reedy bill, I feel like I've been transformed to I don't know, or to an alternative universe. That's the only thing I can think. Okay, we've got two additional witnesses. Senator Reedy, why don't you hand that to the witness right there at the end.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Reneen Eberlein. I'm a sophomore at the Bryn Mawr School in Baltimore. And recently, actually just this year, we have implemented a full phone ban from 8 to 3:30 p.m., and including the tri-schools, so Roland Park Country School, Gilman, and even Boys Latin have all implemented this phone ban. And I'm here to support it because I feel like students, including myself, have built a really anxious attachment to cell phones. We use it as kind of a way to detach from peers. So during passing periods, for example, instead of interacting with peers and having meaningful conversations and trying to connect, I found myself and I found my peers consistently, exactly, typing on your cell phone, going on Instagram, trying to kind of detach yourself, which I feel like is a huge problem because you're impeding your ability to connect and to go for opportunities. But I also feel that this bill allows students to gain a sort of independence from their cell phones, which I feel is just a life skill, especially in the future when you're no longer under authority figures. You're able to kind of do that for yourself in college and jobs for the future. And I think generally, especially with this bill collecting data on cell phones' impact on academic performance and bullying and its social impacts, I think this is not only a move to better students' experience in schools, but it's also an important moment to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Tell us who you are, your name.
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. My name is Krish Butta, and I'm a student at Poolsville High School in Montgomery County. I'm speaking today to testify in favor of Senate Bill 29. This bill represents a crucial step in improving student focus, engagement, and well-being in our schools. Research has consistently demonstrated that excessive cell phone use during instructional time negatively impacts school academic performance, student engagement, and social interactions. A study by the London School of Economics found that schools implementing phone bans saw a 6.4% improvement in test scores, with the greatest gains observed among students from disadvantaged backgrounds. Locally, Montgomery County Public Schools has observed increasing concerns regarding three main areas: academic disruptions, where teachers frequently report that cell phones interfere with learning, leading to distractions and reduced participation in class discussions; cyberbullying and mental health, where in 2023, MCPS documented a rise in cyberbullying incidents linked to student phone use during school hours. Social media pressures have been strongly correlated with increased levels of anxiety and depression among students. And lastly, classroom behavior and discipline. Schools in Montgomery County can report that phone-related infractions contribute significantly to disciplinary referrals, detracting from valuable instructional time. At Poolsville, I've seen my classmates in my classes miss important lectures because they were too busy texting their friends on Snapchat or scrolling through Instagram. A phone-free policy would help us stay present, engage more in class, and strengthen our school community. By supporting Senate Bill 29, Maryland has an opportunity to lead an evidence-based education policy, creating a model that, if successful, can be expanded statewide. I strongly urge the General Assembly to pass this bill and prioritize student success. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And to the entire panel, Senator Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, again, thank my constituent, Reneem, for testifying. She's a 43rd District constituent and new to Maryland as well. And she, earlier today, we were having a conversation and your mother was there. And some of the resistance, as was suggested by the sponsors, coming from parents. And could you talk a little bit about that and perhaps some sort of what your mother shared or some of what, I'll just stick with that.
Yeah, so I think the concern was parents being able to communicate with their children with a phone ban. And I think this policy solves that issue because it's really only during instructional time that phones are not allowed. There's no locking up of phones. Students can have it during lunchtime, I believe. And if an administrator or educator deems it acceptable, then a student can use their phone. I think there is numerous opportunities for a student to be able to communicate with their parent. And I think that in a situation where they would need to, there's also other ways to do that.
Yeah, and your mother can wave her hand and co-sign that. And just one more thing. Can you talk about how it has rolled out at Bryn Mawr, and particularly speak to parents as well as your experience?
Yeah, so we have a little bit of a different phone ban. So initially during the first semester, it was phone-free Fridays. So during the entire Friday, we would put our cell phone in this box and lock it away. And then after Thanksgiving break, we switched over to a full phone ban. So from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., your phone would go in a lockbox all 5 days of the week. Initially, it was hard. I think never having experienced any phone ban like that caused a little bit of withdrawal, you could say. But I think in the end, for my friend group and my friends and my peers, I think we found ourselves getting closer because we were no longer relying on our cell phones in times of silence. We tried to fill that silence, and we tried to connect, and we tried to find ways to engage rather than falling back on our cell phones as kind of a last resort.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing on Senate Bill 29. We're going to go to Senator Watson, Senate Bill 368. And the only witness signed up other than yourself is Dr. York, who advised us earlier that he couldn't stay. So it's all yours. You are the only witness on Senate Bill 368.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. So this is the second of 3 bills related to cell phones. So I am excited that many of us recognize that there's an issue, and I'm sure this august body will take all 3 of these, put them together, and see what the best practices could be. But not to make my legislative director upset, let me read her prepared remarks. This bill requires, Senate Bill 368, Maryland Phone Free School Act. This bill requires each county board of education to develop and implement a policy limiting students' cell phone use during instructional time defined as the school day. It requires students to store their cell phones in a secure place during the school day except during their lunch period. Also prohibits students from using social media applications and websites during school hours. There are some exceptions to the bill. Students with documented IEPs or Section 504 plans, students with documented health issues during an emergency event or when directed by an educator or administrator for educational purposes. Additionally, the bill requires school boards to develop appropriate disciplinary measures for violations of the policy, including a warning for the first violation enforced by administrators. The Maryland State Education Association represents 75,000 educators and school employees, and everyone is in support of Senate Bill 368. Of those same educators, 83% report that students have difficulty concentrating and completing assignments. So I won't read the rest of this because the young lady who just spoke captured it all. The issues around bullying, the issues around texting, the constant wanting to get validation through social media during the course of the day have all led to problems with mental health with our kids. And in speaking with the president of the University of Maryland, Baltimore, who went to a conference to talk about impacts to incoming students, she listed this as the #1 priority of the students who are trying to come in and the issues and challenges involved with social media. One thing I did want to bring up, and this was the same comment from there was an opposition letter, for me as well as for the bill that just came up, talking about students with documented IEPs and how identifying them could subject them to potential bullying. And of course, you understand the intent. We wanted to make sure that those who need a phone for emergency situations have it, but then now we're inadvertently identifying this important subset of kids. So I'm willing to work to see if we can find some clean way to do this. One of the things that state superintendent talked about, many counties have implemented this all different ways. I think Caroline County, if I'm not correct, for middle school had the most stringent because you have to put your cell phone in a yonder pack. And if you know what that is, you have to put it in a pouch. It stays locked for the duration of the day. It restricts all radio signals from hitting cellular signals from entering the cell phone, and you unlock it at the end of the day. But whatever it is, we need to do everything in our power to ensure that during the instructional part of the day, our students are paying attention and are focused. And that's the intent of this bill my colleagues. So with that, I ask for a favorable report on all three of the bills that related to this, but hopefully we can converge to one whereby we recognize this issue.
Okay, any questions for Senator Watson? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 368, which takes us to Senator Simon Ayer next. Senate Bill 137. And we have yourself and then one virtual witness signed up favorable with amendment. LaShonda Henderson. Is Henderson in the queue? Okay. That's the only other witness signed up. Senator Simon Ayer. Again, Senate Bill 137.
Thank you. For the record, Senator Simon Ayer, Senate Bill 137. And I asked my panel just to do written testimony. It's a consensus legislation. Maryland Military Coalition got a little late, but they emailed everybody on the committee, so you should have your support letter there, and the Veterans Caucus also supports it. And I wanted to thank the Department of Veterans and Military Families for their support letter. So basically, current law says if someone joins the military during a conflict, that they leave high school, they go out, and then they come back eventually as a veteran, they can go and get their high school diploma, work through the county board. That's current law. Right now it has World War II, Korea, and Vietnam Wars listed. Working with the department, we decided to make that a more generic instead of a list, and that way, instead of every time there's a conflict coming in, we have to update this legislation. So that's basically what the bill did, and you'll hear shortly from LaShonda. She had an amendment that she wanted to put on there. She reached out to me and said, currently, I'll tell you why she does it, but currently, you have to be honorably discharged to get your high school diploma. And so she requested of our office, could we amend out honorably? And we thought about it, and it's basically they're trying to improve themselves by getting an education. So I reached out to the governor's office, I reached out to the military Department of Veterans, Military Families, and also advocacy groups. And they all came back and said, we support that. It won't cost anything, it won't take anything away from veterans, and it's giving them a second chance. So I support my bill with amendment. And with that, I'll open up to questions after the virtual.
Let's, Ms. Henderson, we're going to bring you in. You've signed up favorable with an amendment, so you've got 2.5 minutes.
Awesome. Good afternoon, committee. I'm LaShonda C. Henderson, a U.S. Army vet residing in Camp Springs, Maryland, a private citizen speaking in support of SB 137. The bill acknowledges what I feel is a critical milestone for many in life, which is a high school diploma. Whether you're 8 or 80, you remember the words of your mom, your dad, or family in general about the importance of education. This bill seeks to honor those who served in military conflict, acknowledging that they left school to ensure that other citizens are allowed the freedom to attend school. It's monumental. While I support the spirit of it, I feel it can be enhanced. As a former correctional officer for our nation's only maximum military-run prison, I can tell you that sometimes soldiers fall off their path. They make poor judgment, sometimes because they entered this discipline space from an area that is disadvantaged. The military isn't for everyone. Some have trouble adjusting, and some encounter systematic barriers, situations out of their control that force them out of service, and some within their control, but out of service, but they served. So my request is that this opportunity for the high school diploma be extended to all who attempted to give up their freedom and their school attainment for service and freedom of all of our citizens. I ask that you consider the general language that acknowledges that any soldier that left high school to serve in a conflict be considered, because really only 1%, some say 7% of Americans enter service giving up life for another. And it's not a small task. Thank you for thinking of the human that existed before putting on the uniform and honoring the soldier that resulted afterwards. Whether through draft or volunteer, citizens leave their families, jobs, hopes, and promises made to self and others. They come home new people, some whole, others missing parts of themselves, bodies, and mind. While they don't often come back the same as they were, as a soldier, we're always thinking. We think a lot, good times, challenging times. Veterans are full of memories of what life could have been like. And I think this bill is an opportunity to ease their minds about one of the milestones. It gives them one less could have should have, would have thing to think about. So thank you for thinking of the soldiers and acting for those who serve. Thank you for your time and consideration, committee.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Henderson? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 137, which brings us to our final bill of the day, Senate Bill 68. Senator Brooks? Yep. Okay, Senator Brooks, I've got as your designated panelist Reverend Linda Boyd. I've got Michael Gannon and Lauren Lamb. Does that sound right to you? Those are that you've
right,
we've got
yes.
a few other witnesses signed up, but those are the
Yes.
3 on your panel.
Okay.
So Senate Bill 68.
Thanks, Chair Feldman, and Vice Chair. Oh, well, I don't see you. And members of my EEE committee. Thank you for the record. I'm Senator Ben Brooks. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you on Senate Bill 68, that public school restoration, public school restorative practices school comprehension plan. The bill has 3 main objectives. That redefines the term restorative approaches to restorative practices. It mandates the Maryland State Department of Education, MSDE, to create a comprehensive plan, and it establishes that if the local board decides to implement restorative practices, they must use the plan that was established by the state. A restorative school program is a school-wide effort to create a positive, relationship-focused learning environment which promotes respect, community, responsibility, and accountability, and empowerment among students and staff. It is not a mental health discipline, an attendance, human resource, instructional, or curriculum program. Instead, restorative practices or a proactive method to conflict resolutions, which has been shown to improve school climate and narrows disparities between students from all backgrounds. Maryland public schools are afflicted with a variety of problems, from rising truancy to falling graduation rates and conflicts between students and teachers. Improving students' well-being and student-teacher relationship has been the priority for the state since the Blueprint for Maryland Future was enacted in 2021. In this legislation, the blueprint establishes that the Maryland Consortium on Coordinated Community Supports to focus on meeting student behavior needs in a holistic, non-stigmatized, and coordinated manner. The consortium was tasked with developing the best practices for the creation of a positive classroom for all students. Additionally, schools were also required to appoint mental health services coordinators within each school to provide these services and ensure that the competence of trained staff. SB 68 builds off of the work of MSDE by building a foundational framework for determining whether a restorative school looks like, or what a restorative school looks like, how it trains its staff, and what metrics a restorative school would use to determine success. In its development, MSDE would consult educators and administrators who have established and operated restorative practice schools, establish model training material, and develop an intended outcome and performance metrics that the use of restorative practices are designed to achieve. Further, SB 68 provides the local county boards the framework that they need to implement restorative practice schools should they elect to do so. Restorative practice schools are not new to Maryland. They are a number there are a number of which already are in place. A Johns Hopkins analysis of 15 Baltimore City schools using restorative practices found that suspensions were reduced by 44% in the program's first year. After 5 years of restorative practice, schools' arrests were reduced by 81%, indicating that a reduction in violent behavior and a major step toward closing the schools to prison pipeline. A nationwide study by the RAND Corporation corroborated these results, finding that students in restorative schools were suspended less frequently, suspended for shorter durations, and less likely to be suspended multiple times, and referred fewer students to alternative schools compared to the non-restorative school. RAND also found that restorative schools narrowed the disparity in suspension of Black, Latinos, low-income, and students with disabilities who are suspended at more than twice the rate of their peers in non-restorative schools. These findings are indicative of the impact restorative practices have on students' conduct and the learning environment. Restorative schools reduce the likelihood of dysfunctional behavior and in turn improve students' and teachers' perception of school safety and learning. Restorative practices do not just improve conduct, they also foster a positive classroom culture and strengthen the educational connections with the students. Baltimore City Public Schools found that restorative practices improve education perception of teaching, improve the classroom climate, and increase the respect students gave to all other members of the classroom community. In Baltimore City, 72% of the school staff reported improvements in school climate, and 69% reported an improvement in student respect for one another after integrating restorative practices. SB 68 provides a framework to implement restorative practices as a whole, with the creation of a comprehensive plan that would provide a statewide model. For that reason, I'm requesting a favorable report on SB 68.
Okay, thank you, Senator Brooks. Let's go to your panel and then take questions. We'll just go down the row. Tell us who you are, and each of you are going to have 2.5 minutes, okay?
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. For the record, in the absence of Michael Gannon, I'm testifying on behalf of the Maryland Association of Student Councils, MASC. My name is Mara Babb, and I am a student from Anne Arundel County. I serve as a State Legislative Affairs Coordinator for the Maryland Association of Student Councils, or MASC. On behalf of MASC, I request a favorable report on Senate Bill 68. The Maryland Association of Student Councils is a youth-led organization composed of secondary school student councils across the state, advocating for the best interests of all Maryland students. MASC calls on the General Assembly to support restorative practices within Maryland schools by passing Senate Bill 68. The restorative practices plan, outlined by the State Department of Education, would allow for the uniform implementation of such practices in the Maryland schools. This plan moves away from the traditionally punitive disciplinary approaches and gives students the tools they need to succeed both in and outside of the classroom. As a State Legislative Affairs Coordinator for MASC and involved student advocate, I have seen the positive impact that restorative practices can have on students, corroborated by academic research. According to the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, restorative practices address the root of behavioral issues by tending to students' socio-emotional needs, focusing on the causation between personal life and outward behavior. Moreover, a study conducted by the University of Chicago Education Lab found that Chicago public schools, upon implementing restorative practices, saw a 35% reduction in school arrests, significant decreases in violent and nonviolent offenses, and an improvement in the school environment. The Restorative Practices Plan will uplift students throughout the state and empower them to lead fulfilling and content lives free from the burden of harsh discipline. Accordingly, MASC requests a favorable report on Senate Bill 68 from the committee. Thank you for your time.
Okay, let's go to the next witness. Slam.
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee.
I'm Lauren Lamb with the Maryland State Education Association, representing more than 75,000 public school educators across the state. We are here in support of Senate Bill 68. As educators, we unequivocally believe that restorative justice practices are not only valuable, but essential to achieving equitable, safe, positive school environments for all students. Restorative practices may include tactics like de-escalation, discussion circles, trauma-informed conflict resolution, and more. But becoming a restorative school is more than following a checklist. It represents a shift in school culture and mindsets, in how we think about conflict and child development, and in how we think about what it looks like to build strong, trusting relationships. Practice with fidelity, restorative strategies dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline, and they are also integral to the community schools model our state has embraced. This body has recognized the value of restorative practices, evidenced by their repeated mention in the blueprint. But unfortunately, many schools and educators are lacking the support and guidance to truly implement this model. The plan and model training materials created by MSDE under Senate Bill 68 would be a tangible roadmap for schools that are earnest to embrace a restorative model but don't know where to start. We urge that staff who lead restorative practices are members of the school administration so that they are empowered to guide school policy changes, such as revising schedules to make time for discussion circles. This bill represents a step toward moving from philosophy of restorative practices to actual practice of restorative justice. For that reason, I urge you to issue a favorable report on Senate Bill 68. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Feldman. I'm Mary Gable. I'm Assistant State Superintendent with the Maryland State Department of Education and the Division of Student Support and Federal Programs. We are here, MSDE is here to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 68. The bill, Senate Bill 68, calls for MSDE, as we've heard, to create a comprehensive plan for implementing restorative practices schools. It defines restorative practices and outlines requirements of the plan, establishing training materials and identifying performance metrics. County boards of education are required to use a comprehensive plan to establish comprehensive restorative practices in their schools. The bill also includes reporting requirements. The proposed legislation emphasizes the importance of building strong relationships, setting clear expectations, focusing on repairing harm when violations occur. It also seeks to move from a framework of punishment towards a model that prioritizes accountability, still has accountability, restoring harm, and community well-being. Currently, many schools rely on punitive measures that can fail to address the root causes of student misbehavior. Senate Bill 68 seeks to change this by emphasizing a relationship-focused preventative approach through restorative practices that are based on the identified root causes for the behavior. The bill specifies restorative practices can include a number of things, such as you've heard, conflict resolution, mediation, peer mediation, and so on. These are all evidence-based methods of addressing behavior that lead to more positive and productive outcomes in schools. The practices are intended to be integrated into the daily activities of the whole school. In implementing Senate Bill 68, MSDE will support the schools seeking to transform school culture. Restorative practices are designed to create learning environments where students feel safe, respected, and connected. It's about investing in students and their future. We know that strong relationships are the foundation of successful learning, and that focus on restorative practices will improve school climate and student well-being, building a community that values relationships. We urge you to support.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Senator Brooks or any of the panelists? Okay, seeing none. I'm just going to, thank you. You're released. I'm going to call, we got 6 seats there. I'm going to call 6 names on the list. Martin Mitchell. Is Martin Mitchell here? Okay, Dooney Oni. Sharon Blake. Sharon Blake here? Okay, Sharon is here. Jamar Russell. Jamar Russell, come on up. Cheryl McLeod. Yes. Okay, Cheryl. Corey Witherspoon. Corey. Okay, Corey. Jean Ritchie. Jean Ritchie here. Okay. Okay, we got 6 witnesses, 6 seats. And whoever wants to grab the mic first, each of you are going to have 2.5 minutes, okay? Go on.
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, honorable members of the Education, Energy, and the Environment Committee. My name is Sharon Blake. I have served as a career public school educator in Maryland, serving the Baltimore City Public School System for 43 years. I come before you today to urge this honorable committee to give a favorable vote on Senate Bill 68. Restorative Practices Schools and Maryland Public Schools. While restorative practices is a set of tools given to the school staff, restorative practice is actually a way of life, not just a program. Before retiring in 2017, I taught young people who face some of the most difficult circumstances, shootings, stabbings, robbings, and rape in their community and in the school. To that end, we had a student stabbed in our school and later died at the University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center. Because of that traumatic incident, the staff was retooled and received professional development in the use and value of restorative practices. As a staff, we were required to use restorative practices in the classroom on a daily basis. Classroom practitioners began to use restorative practices to de-escalate conflicts between students, problems as seen by the students in and outside of the classroom and the school. To that end, restorative practices is an excellent tool to have students think about their thinking, thus developing metacognition skills. It also allows students to reflect on and analyze how to make good decisions to improve their lives and people around them. The use of restorative practices reduce arguments, fights, violence in our school. Moreover, restorative practices profoundly transform the culture, climate, and the teaching and learning environment within our school. By stressing open communication, compassion, empathy, and personal responsibility, we created a culture where students felt heard, respected, empowered, and trusted by their peers and staff, elevating their self-esteem. Restorative practices is an excellent opportunity to ensure success not only of young people in Maryland, but a tool to recruit and retain classroom practitioners. In closing, once again, I urge this honorable committee to give a favorable vote to Senate Bill 68. And thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Whoever wants to just grab the mic, whoever would like to take the lead there, and you got 2.5 minutes. Tell us your name.
Greetings, Chair and distinguished members of the committee. I appreciate you all for hearing this issue. My name is Martin Mitchell. I'm a former at-large councilman in the city of Laurel and an active NAACP member. Most importantly, I'm a parent of twin 8-year-old boys. So this bill is personal to me and my young family. This bill is a step in the right direction because it looks for alternative ways to holistically address our school communities. I have always been an advocate for more counselors and more holistic approaches in our schools. This would be monumental for our youth. As a parent, my primary concern is the well-being and development of my children. I firmly believe that restorative practices can be brought into all school communities. This would create an environment that fosters not only academic success, but emotional growth and interpersonal skills. Restorative practices can transform the culture and climate within our schools. The emphasis on open communication and empathy will create a sense of belonging and inclusivity. It is about building a community, focusing on repairing rather than retribution or punishment in the form of discipline. Let's do everything we can to support the emotional, mental, and social health of our young scholars. I have a firm belief if we dive in and invest and buy into restorative practices, we would see notable improvements in the performance and morale of our students, faculty, and overall general improvement in the relationships among the student body and the community at large. I implore this deliberative body to vote favorably on SB 68 and HB 197, Restore Schools Act. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cheryl McLeod, and I'm actually a member of numerous organizations that support restorative practices in schools. But today, I'm going to be the voice of Tyrell. Tyrell is gleaned from this book, Speak to Me, and I will listen between the lines. My name is Tyrell. I don't care. I just got here. Already, I don't care anything about this day. Send me next door. I don't care. Bench me for recess. I don't care. Make me right. I will do my work quietly 100 times. I don't care. I don't care about anything this day, and you can't make me. The teacher said, don't be an excuse maker. People will say, here comes an old excuse maker. Your boss will fire you, your friends will leave you, your children will shake their heads every time you open your mouth, an excuse will fall out. Excuse making is just a bad habit. That's all it is. 57 steps to the office, a stapled note in my hand. The teacher doesn't like me. I raise my hand, she skips me. I keep it down, she looks right at me. A stapled note in my hand listing all my sins. I'm going to Louisiana. I'm going there, not coming back to this school, no more. Me and my grandmother getting us a house with a yard, velvet couch, my own bedroom, my own TV, a kitchen with a table in it, and a window so when I eat my cereal, I can look out that window. 5 more minutes and I'll get to go home. Walking home makes me feel good. Walking home makes me feel so good because I can run, I can walk, I can stop at the corner store, I can talk to Mr. Song about whatever I want, I can shoot some hoops, I can run down a grassy hill and turn a flip I've been practicing if I want to. I can do anything I want if I want to because it's after school and I'm free. Think about if Tyrell were in a school that endorsed the restorative culture, and he would have an opportunity to really be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go down to the middle, or whoever, or gentlemen, you want to, sir, at the end, want to tell us your name?
All right, my name is Corey Witherspoon, and I'm a restorative practice practitioner. What Ms. Sharon was talking about, the mentee who got stabbed and died at Renaissance Academy. He got stabbed and he died in my arms. So this come close to heart when I speak about restorative practice. But the more and more I studied on restorative practice, I see that it's not just a Baltimore City thing. All right. So when I went to Logan and I saw Baltimore County schools, like they're actually in Riverview, they're actually doing restorative practice. When I went out to Anne Arundel County, I'm saying that they're doing restorative practice out there. When I went to Washington County, they're doing restorative practice out there. So it's like what I've grown to see is that it's bigger than just Baltimore. Why does restorative practice work? One might ask. Restorative practice bridges the relationship between student and teacher, staff and teacher, administration and student, and it bridges it all together. It also brings in the parent as well. It's a community of social well-being. It's a community of acceptance. I thank y'all all for like just being attentive and just listening, because I know y'all listen to all these hearings, right? And to be restorative is to go ahead and acknowledge that, right? And y'all took the time out of y'all night just to go ahead and just listen to everything. And that's part of being restorative. And that's part of what we as a community could be, more kind. And it's teaching all schools, every county that we can think about, every city that we can think about, in Baltimore and around Maryland. We need to learn how to be kinder. And restorative practice teaches empathy and it teaches kindness. And that's what we all need to worry about. I sit on a trauma-informed care task force for the mayor's office. I sit on the parent community advisory board. So I'm getting all of this great wealth of great experiences that restorative practice has given. And this is a way for us to go ahead and just heal, not just Baltimore, not just Anne Arundel County, it's just to go ahead and heal Maryland. And the Maryland needs a hug right now, especially in the time that we're in. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. Well, good evening now. I am Jean Wilson Ritchie, a resident of the 41st District of Maryland and a retired community college administrator. As a resident of Baltimore City, who spent 38 years dedicated to the well-being of students in Maryland and other states, I feel honored to share my experiences and insights with regard to the transformative impact of restorative practices on the social and emotional fabric of our educational communities. I advocate strong support for SB 0917, the Restorative Schools Act. I'm sorry, that's SB 68, okay. As program director of the Educational Talent Search Program, which was funded through the Office of Post-Secondary Programs in the U.S. Department of Education's Title IV programs designed to provide academic and social support primarily for first generation students from low-income families to prepare them for entrance to and completion of post-secondary education. Our mission was to seek out those who were the least likely to go on to higher education and pursue meaningful careers. We also were responsible for ensuring that financial assistance was there to support their program of study. This population included students who were from homes and communities where there was much violence and very low completion rates of high school and certainly of post-secondary education. We proudly served students enrolled at 47 middle and high schools in Baltimore City, and along with a few other students who came from other places who had just heard about our outreach program. With the integration of restorative practices into our service approach, we witnessed positive changes in social dynamics. These practices emphasize building and repairing relationships, creating a sense of belonging, and encouraging empathy among students and their peers. The outcomes revealed stronger social connections, reduced instances of isolation, and an overall improvement in school climate. My time is up, but I just wanted to end by saying that I urge this committee to recognize the transformative impact that restorative practices can have on the social and emotional well-being of students in Maryland. As a retired community college second-tier administrator, having been privileged to work with students and see the changes that can come about with this type of service, I can tell you that these practices foster resilience and empathy among our young people. By supporting legislation in favor of restorative practices, we are investing in the emotional health and future success of every student in our state. I urge you to support restorative schools, the Restorative Schools Act. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Sir, you'll be the final witness on the panel, and tell us your name.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody, esteemed members of this council. My name is Jamal Russell. I work for Bridges to Success under PG County Health Department, where I mentor the youth referred to us by DJS. Before that, I was an incarcerated citizen for 12 years. During that time, I was a youth challenge facilitator for 3 years. I've also been a student aide for 2 years. So I've seen the effects of different things on the other side. However, I was also able to take advantage of programs like AVP, which uses the same type of method, that having circles, being able to share, and AVP is alternative to violence. And these are the things we need preventative methods for the youth nowadays. My whole thing is I want to prevent them from going where I have been. So it's using the things that the tools rather, that can help them, because we need things to deal with the trauma that they're facing. There's things at home, things of coming out of that pandemic, also the various drug epidemics and the gun culture. Just this morning, I got a text that one of my youth was shot this morning. So it's being able to give him the counsel, give him the therapy, give him the tools and resources that's needed. So we need these things in the schools so that we can direct the children in a path to be successful. I personally use these things even on a one-on-one basis. I would love to see them more so in the schools, because when I visit the youth in the schools, they're not aware of who their guidance counselors are or what the use of a guidance counselor is for. They have student advocates that don't have, and not enough staff to actually direct these kids into the right places. There's things set up in the county. However, if the kids don't know how to take advantage of them, then what's the point? So when having a method where there's more community, when we can discuss things, then that allows them, one, to develop a relationship of trust, then be able to actually hear how they can benefit and succeed from this. Because the fact of the matter is, this is our future. Future of Maryland, future of our county, also the future of this country. So if we're not doing this and making sure that the children are adequately equipped, then we're actually leading them to failure.
Okay, perfect timing there. Questions for Senator Brooks or any of the panelists? Okay, thank you, everybody, for your testimony. Really appreciate it. We do have some additional witnesses. I'm going to see if they're here. At least they signed up. Well, you're talking, I'm talking in person still. We're talking, okay, so is Janet Lane here? Janet, we've got Frank Patinella. Kelly Quinn? Is Kelly Quinn here? Okay. Okay, let's take these three, and then we do have a few virtual witnesses, and then one unfavorable. We'll take that last. But okay, folks, you heard all the testimony, so I don't have to repeat everything yet again. So just give us an independent from your point of view. So who wants to proceed first? Okay, let's take these three. Okay.
Should I start left or right?
Technical glitch there. Okay. Ms. Quinn, why don't you start? You get everybody gets 2.5 minutes. Why don't you start?
Hi, I'm Kelly Quinn. I am the chairperson of the Maryland Coalition to Reform School Discipline, and also I'm the managing director at the Choice Program. Today I wanted to share with you the work of the Coalition to Reform School Discipline. We bring together advocates, service providers, and community members dedicated to transforming school discipline practices within the Maryland public school systems. CRSD is committed to fair and equitable treatment of all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, religion, socioeconomic status. I am so glad we live in a state where I can say all of those words legally. Thank you. We've been a vocal advocate of restorative practices and decreasing the state's dependence on punitive discipline for the last 10 years. We are strongly in favor of this bill, and we have some suggestions with amendments. Restorative practices, when implemented with fidelity, as others have said, are an effective way to build a positive school culture that is healthy, safe, and inclusive. Restorative practices is more than just a responsive disciplinary strategy, and it makes schools safe for everyone. We support the bill's request for MSDE to develop a plan, and here's where we respectfully recommend that MSDE assemble a group of restorative practice practitioners from throughout the state who have experience in implementing restorative practices in a culturally responsive and racially equitable lens. This will help enrich and assist the development of the plan. Again, just to reiterate, we support the expansion of restorative practices in Maryland schools. We request that HB 197 and SB 68 be amended. We can't wait to work with Senator Brooks and Delegate Pasteur on this. I thank you all for the time. Let's do it.
Okay. Either one of you, just, yeah, why don't you take that? Either one, just grab the mic and 2.5 minutes. There you go. Tell us your name.
Good evening, Janet Lane, a retired Baltimore City educator and former school-based secretary. And looking at restorative practice, back in the day when I was the secretary and the students would be sent to the office, for me to kind of diffuse the situation before the school administrators would meet with the students, such practice would have been paramount to me looking at the reduction of suspensions. It's already been proven and said that this practice is not just a strategy, but it's a lifestyle. It embodies the framework to help students, staff, work in connection with each other to understand that you may be upset about something, but it's a proper way, an appropriate way in which to handle your dislike, which could very well cut down on the crimes, since we're having problems and being plagued with juvenile issues around, crime. So I totally support Bill 0068. And I hope that you all, and I urge you all to do the same, because if you go to one school to, and a public school in Maryland, you'll get the same framework. You're using, so restorative practice. So I urge you all to consider this strongly to support not just the school environment, but our communities, because the students don't just live in schools, they live in communities as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Frank Patnella, and I'm a policy advocate with the ACLU of Maryland. I'm overjoyed to be here in strong support of Senate Bill 68 because we've had many more conversations about the role of DJS and the courts when it comes to children misbehavior. You've heard about what restorative practices are, but this bill goes beyond just responding to discipline issues when they arise. This is about developing a comprehensive plan for restorative schools, which is a prevention strategy and, more pointedly, a holistic positive childhood development model. It's about intentionally working towards building a school culture that is culturally responsive, life-affirming, and that promotes positive identity development and relationships among students within all activities of the school. I read a study about teachers administering a test to students in a few classrooms. And the teachers in these classrooms said, okay, here's the test. You have 1 hour. Hope you studied this time. In other classrooms, the teacher said, okay, here's the test. I know all of you are smart, and I want to see you put your best effort forward. I know you can succeed. Children who received the positive message did much better. This study shows that if biases are not mitigated, harm can be done. We need to think about how many interactions like this are happening every day in schools throughout a whole year, year after year, and how many interactions are serving to build up children versus doing harm. Children also receive messages from society about who they are and what is expected from them. As they develop, sometimes, maybe oftentimes, these messages are internalized. They may grow to not believe in the value of education or that they belong in college or among the professional workforce. Restorative schools counter these narratives and promote positive identity development, self-determination, self-efficacy, so that children can realize their full potential. Lastly, this bill only directs MSDE to develop a plan, and we're asking the committee for a favorable vote and an amendment to ensure that the process is transparent and allows for directly impacted school community members to participate in the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the panel? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. We've got 2 virtual witnesses. We're going to pull them up. Okay, we've got Mr. Mosley and a second virtual witness. Logan Endow? Is that who it is? Okay. Okay, Mr. Mosley, you're going to start. You've got 2.5 minutes, and you've signed up favorable. Mr. Mosley, can you hear me?
Yeah, ours has it.
Mr. Mosley, can you hear? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Nice shows that your mic is
Let me
on.
see. Yeah.
Mr. Mosley, testing 1, 2, 3. You got me?
I copy now. You were muted.
Okay,
so now I can
excellent.
hear you.
Okay, with that, you got 2.5 minutes to weigh in on the bill, okay?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, esteemed members of the committee. My name is Nakoma Mosley, and I've had the amazing privilege of serving as the principal at the fantastic Winds Falls Elementary School in Baltimore City. I currently serve as the Associate Director for the Positive School Center, a program for the Center of Restorative Change within the University of Maryland School of Social Work. Today, I come to you not only as an educational leader, but as a witness to the transformative impact that restorative practices have had within my school community and the schools that I work with across the school district. I'm here to share my experiences and advocate for the continued support and expansion of this research-based practice across Maryland. I express my support for Senate Bill 68, the Restorative Schools Act, with amendments as recommended by the Maryland Coalition to Reform School Discipline. Restorative practices became an anchoring part of my school's culture. The practices focused on fostering positive relationships, creating a sense of community, and addressing conflicts through open communication and understanding. As a result, my school and the schools that I work with experience a notable positive shift in culture and a more holistic approach to education. With restorative practices, you will see the reduction in suspensions and punitive disciplinary measures, addressing the root cause of conflict and harm, improve school climate, resulting in a safe and more engaging learning environment, decrease in teacher turnover, and it cultivates learning spaces that promote student well-being. So in conclusion, I urge the committee to strongly consider the impact that restorative practices can have on schools across Maryland. Again, as a former principal and a coach to principals, I have seen these practices transform not only our students' behaviors, but the community at large. By supporting this legislation in favor of restorative practices, we are investing in a brighter future for all students in our state. Again, I urge you to support Senate Bill 68, Restorative Schools Act, with the amendments as recommended by the Maryland Coalition to Reform School Discipline. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Mosley? Okay, seeing none, that's going to bring us to our next witness, Logan Endow. Mr. Endow, again, you've got 2.5 minutes and you've signed up favorable as well, okay?
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Hear you. Come on.
Okay. I just wanted to thank the esteemed committee and all of our witnesses for coming to support the Restorative Schools Act. You know, I grew up in Baltimore City. I've seen extreme cases and incidences of violence, and every student across the state of Maryland is recovering now from violence, from the COVID pandemic, from losing family members, from political change here in our state and across the country, recently especially. And a lot of the young people can't process this extent of pain. Restorative practices is an evidence-based approach supported by institutions such as Johns Hopkins, Harvard, and Stanford that helps to ameliorate some of the pain that our students, and our most vulnerable students in particular, are facing. I noticed it when my mother was a principal. She used restorative practices as a teacher and brought up a lot of the trauma. Like kids who were homeless and weren't comfortable expressing that got homelessness services because of it. Kids who were violent, they got to the root of that violence, and they were able to get out of the gang life and get out of DJS services. She used it as a principal as well, and turned her whole school around. And that's when I really became interested. Also working during the COVID outbreak with folks who are experiencing homelessness, how easy it is for our students to fall through the cracks, even though we're the richest state in the country. We have the best education system in the country. There's so many students in every single jurisdiction across the state where one missed paycheck, one parent dies, and they fall through the cracks, and they don't have anyone to go to. Restorative practices is a way to kind of sensitize the social environment of the entire school, from principal to the school police, to the teachers, the grocery, to the cafeteria clerks. Everyone being trained in restorative practices gives an assurance that there's a safety net where they notice some of these social aspects and say, okay, this kid is dealing with a trauma response, let's get to the root of it. And they can then refer to social workers, they can refer to homelessness services, they can refer to counselors, they can refer to the school nurse, and actually get to the root of their trauma rather than trying to suspend their way out of this. You know, we're going through a suspension crisis right now. We're going through a crisis of chronic absenteeism. A lot of that is driven by, of course, the pandemic and trauma and things of that nature. And that's costing us federal funds. So by implementing evidence-based approaches such as restorative practices, it has an amazing return on investment. And as you can see, everyone who is a stakeholder in this, from MSDE to MSEA to the ACLU to the students themselves, are in support of this. It passed the House 128-6 last session. I hope it can pass the Senate this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Endow. Any questions for our witness virtually? Okay, seeing none. Okay, there's one witness signed up unfavorable in person. Is Charlamar Douglas here? Charlamar Douglas, going once, twice, 3 times. That is the extended testimony. That concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 68, concludes our work for today. Good job, guys. That was a long day. And so